Jim Shannon is facing court proceedings over a charge he allegedly assaulted a woman in 2023. The case against the 71-year-old has been adjourned until next month. Police in South Carolina say there are no signs of foul play relating to the death of actress Hayden Panettiere. The star of Heroes and Nashville was found dead at home yesterday, aged 36. Bonnie Tyler has been remembered as a star but never a diva at a funeral for the singer in South Wales. She died in Portugal last month, aged 75. Fans applauded and shouted goodbye as her coffin was led into Swansea Minster. Superfan Rob Marshall became a close friend.
I think what's come across since she's passed is that the world loved her, not just as a musician, but as a person as well. Seeing the tributes from rock giants and pop giants has been quite overwhelming.
The FTSE 100 closed down 29 points this evening at 10,720. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.16. LBC weather: outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow. Brighter and fresher weather will follow with a high of 26. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm John Stratford.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Henry Riley.
And a very good evening to you. 3 minutes after 7 is the time. You're listening to Henry Riley in for Ian Dale tonight and for the next 2 weeks here on LBC. So you're stuck with me for a couple of weeks, but it's lovely to have your company. Thank you. We're going to start with something that I think really could have been an email. The emergency alert. It was on Friday where, I don't know where you were, I was weirdly shopping because I'd done the Clacton overnight election coverage and I was wandering around a very popular supermarket brand in my part of southwest London, and mine was the only one going off at that time. So initially I had the sort of red face of embarrassment before then everyone else's phone started going absolutely mad. And it surprised us, didn't it? Because there was seemingly no warning. I think I read it was posted on the government's website at around 6:45. It went off for most people at some point after that, ringing out across England and Wales. I remember when I was on with you on Saturday morning, someone telling me that they were at the cricket. Was it Lords, I think? About 15,000 people at the 100 or so, with all of their phones going absolutely mad. And I've been slightly surprised by the reaction because people are furious about it. I was reading comments from Nick Ross earlier on, previously of Crime Watch fame, who's now chairman of the National Fire Chiefs Council Board of Trustees. And he said he nearly crashed his car upon hearing the racket, and it was not appropriate in this instance to use the alert. It should only be used for an acute emergency. The Telegraph, meanwhile, have got their hands on this official report that was done by the Cabinet Office, warning that if it's overused, it would undermine public confidence in the system. Now, I'm not going to play you the alert because I'm aware that it's been played a number of times and we're probably getting complaints. So I think, and given it nearly sort of frightened the bejesus out of me on Friday when I was shopping. So we've decided to play a more soothing sound for you instead. It's not any better, is it? We'll take suggestions for your sounds. 0345 606 0973. Message us your suggestion and we won't consider them. But I've agonised about this topic for the last few days, really, because instantly I thought it was quite a good idea, quite a sensible idea. It's the first time that this has been deployed other than in a test. It's been deployed in local areas. I mean, deployed nationally. I think in Plymouth there was this, in fact I've got it here, there was the residents of Plymouth were warned about an unexploded Second World War bomb found in a nearby village. There were people in Wales and southwest England about the dangers of Storm Darragh. So it has been used and used in a targeted way. And I think really that's my critique, in that if you live in, my goodness, parts of Sussex, even parts of the capital, but in particular the West Midlands we've seen, in North Yorkshire, there absolutely is a need for this, of course. But I think, firstly, the fact that it only goes... I was listening to Will Guy on Tom Swarbrick's programme just before, saying it only goes to smartphones. Well, I think surely it could have been a text, really, couldn't it, as opposed to an alert. And then in those serious areas, it could have been elevated. And I'm not angry about it. I'm not foaming at the mouth like other people. I just don't really know if a countrywide alert in England and Wales was completely necessary. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, said it's sort of us crying wolf. And I don't know if I necessarily think that. But I'm also interested in the people who've opted out of the alert. And if you're listening to this now and you are one of the people who has disabled the alert or has opted out, whatever the hell it is, I haven't done so, but I read that there are an increasing number of people who have. If you are one of those people, please do give me a call and tell me why you've decided to opt out of the whole system. 0345 6060 973. But generally, is your view on it that this was rather trigger-happy, that it could undermine trust in the system? It could be, as Chris Philp says, like crying wolf. Really interested to get your thoughts on that. 0345 6060 973. And the last thing I'd say about on that particular point is, if I was in Andy Burnham's position, or whoever made the decision, Louise Haigh in the Cabinet Office, I would have done the exact same thing, by the way. I would have played the alert, because could you imagine if the government hadn't played the alert and we'd subsequently learned that the fire service had urged the government to do it? There would be absolute uproar, and rightly so, because the government would be going against the emergency services. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, I think, if you're a politician. And I understand why they've done it. I just still don't quite think an emergency alert to tell us not to have a barbecue or use fireworks as necessary. Not because they're not important, but because the idiots and the thickos who do that, I don't think they're going to be put off by an emergency alert. But what say you? Did the government misuse the alert on Friday, do you think? 0345 6060 973. This morning we heard on LBC from the Government Minister Matthew Pennycook, who said, well, indeed, this was his explanation of why the alert was justified.
Well, I got the phone the alert like everyone else. I think it was an appropriate use. Absolutely. That's obviously the government's position. I think the context is important here. The government issued that emergency alert at the request of fire and rescue services, who are still dealing with wildfires across the country. There are 12 incidents being responded to as we speak. We, of course, need to use that alert judiciously, but it is there to alert people to a danger to life or property. And that's obviously what we saw, the horrific scenes from Stourbridge of people burnt out from their homes. I think if that alert prevented one less fire, then that was worth it to be issued. But, of course, we've got to use it sparingly and judiciously. But
the Conservative Shadow Cabinet Minister, former Home Secretary Sir James Cleverly, disagrees. This is what he told my LBC colleague, Nick Ferrari.
Well, this was brought in for an important reason, and it was brought in to give emergency national warning. And the whole point of this is to let the country know at the same time if something sudden and dangerous is happening. This dry weather has been building up over weeks. Advice not to use mobile barbecues has been in place for weeks. Being careful about discarding cigarette butts, that's things that people should have known about for weeks. The government is misusing an emergency communications network for public information broadcasts, which could be done online, could be done on TV. And if people get into the habit of ignoring them, which is exactly what will happen if the government keep using it for less urgent things like this, then if we do need to warn the country at short notice, people will ignore the warnings, completely undermining the whole idea of this emergency communication system.
Sir James Cleverly, and I agree with him to a point, actually. You don't want it to become the boy that cried wolf. You don't want it to become something where people are desensitised to it. I do, however, think the people opting out of it are definitely making the wrong decision. You absolutely should not opt out of it. And one thing I did like that came out of it, I saw, was prisoners having their secret phones seized. That's fantastic. I love that prisoners who are hiding phones in their cells had them all seized. That's brilliant. As I say, idiots setting fire. I don't think this is going to put them off. I think we could have had a bit more warning. It could have been an email. It could have been a text. I don't necessarily know if it worked, but what do you think? 0345 6060 973. Fraser Rhodes was part of the team which designed and implemented the emergency mobile alert system and joins me now. Fraser, great to have you on. You've heard what I have to say. Tell me your view.
Sorry, to be honest, I think actually what I'm hearing is there's really mixed opinion. Yeah, and it's probably equally divided on those people who thought it was an overreach and those people who thought actually it was justified. And my immediate thought was this a national level alert? However, hearing from fire officers, hearing and seeing some of the fires locally to me, some within even 500 metres of this house, hearing from colleagues who work in the fire service saying it was very much needed, there really is valid opinions from both sides. And if anything, the positive thing is it's generated this conversation and this discussion. What we're talking about here is a piece of national infrastructure, which is for all of us, right? So it's only valid that we start talking about this and whether the threshold was reached.
When you were designing this and you were part of the team involved with that, what was your role and what were the main concerns that you and colleagues had at the time?
So I was involved for a number of years in sort of trials, really. My main interest was for flood risk. So I was interested in warning people for things like flash floods based on their location, on the basis that opt-in warning systems generally have about 30 to 40% opt-in rate. And actually the biggest risk when it comes to flood are people walking or driving through floodwater. So flood risk was my main kind of concern. When I was asked to join the team, which was actually during COVID when that was kind of triggered, I helped work on kind of the design. I helped design and work on the kind of the national protocol, which is basically the document that says who should use it, why they should use it, how they should use it, when they shouldn't use it. And I also led some of the national testing, so making sure the system was fit for purpose before we rolled it out.
And was it overused, do you think, in this instance?
Well, I think that people are raising a valid point. I think one of the commentators then, I think was it James, saying actually it was built for national alerting. Well, that capability is there, but actually it was built for local and regional alerting as well. So there's an element of targeting, and you mentioned some examples before where it has been used, and I think where it is targeted, you don't get this kind of response. The fact that it went to a national level, I think, does raise some questions, and we mustn't overuse it. Otherwise, people will switch off. You're absolutely right.
And I think it's interesting you said that it's a good thing we're having the debate, because certainly I don't hear that from everyone. There's quite a few people who think that those who are sceptical, and by the way, I clearly think wildfires are important. I think that this alert is actually a very good thing on the whole. I remember when we had these similar debates when there was the sort of nationwide test. But there are those who think that actually the debate shouldn't be had, and it's undermining sort of public trust, and it's undermining institutions like the government who have a message to tell us, and clearly an important one. But you think it's a debate worth having?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to belittle any of the kind of challenges that those decision makers make, whether that's emergency planners up and down the country, having to make some really difficult calls. And having to make, judgments on the best information available at the time. And there will be times when they get those wrong. So, we can't really have every emergency alert can't have a press release in advance of it. It just doesn't work like that.
But why not? I mean, because we've known the wildfires were raging for some time. I mean, there's an argument to say this should have been done weeks ago before. And why was it only put up with 15 minutes notice? Because I read that in the most serious cases, domestic abuse charities are saying that there should have been I mean, I know a lot of people have opted out, actually, and they were given warning to do so at the time. But nonetheless, you know what it's like. People change phones. People don't necessarily know. There's other things going on. They could have had a bit more time to make provisions.
Yeah, I think you can broadly categorise emergencies into kind of two types. So the rising tide incident, as we would call this, which I think this is an example of that, where there is time to potentially do that. And I did see that a press release went out. Arguably, maybe that was a bit too late. It was a Friday. Did organisations and agencies pick that up in advance? But then you also have the no-notice incidents, the flash floods, the reservoir incidents, the terrorism incidents and things where you're just not going to get that. And the challenge you've got, if people opt out, you can't opt out of one type of incident or emergency. You're opting out of everything. So we don't want people getting used to the fact that they're always going to get some prior notice. And I think that is probably worth flagging.
Last question, Fraser. What do you think of the sound? Do you think we should change it? Would you have got any suggestions?
Well, there's actually only one country, as far as I know, that's actually changed the sound, and that was Japan.
Oh,
so
why?
I actually don't know. I think it's baked into. I actually don't know. I think it's actually baked into some of the specifications that they built in the time. Japan's actually had that for a number of years. The sound is actually designed really to trigger a response, and it clearly does that. The first thing people do is try and reach for it and silence the sound. We know that from the research. It's actually got a reserved vibration as well, and that's for accessibility. But there's standards that are set. And those standards are globally, handset manufacturers and others just want standardization across the piece. And unfortunately, what that means for governments around the world is there are certain things they can change and certain things they can't. But Japan is the only one that I'm aware of that actually has a different tone. So there we go.
And no suggestions of what to change it with? No, we'll keep it as it is. Did you come up with the noise?
What was that, sorry?
Did you come up with the noise yourself?
No, I didn't.
Right.
You'd have to see the Americans for that. And actually, interesting, at one point, if any broadcaster in the US played that sound, they were fined six-figure sums because it was supposed to remain reserved only for the alert. So, you know.
Well, I hope that doesn't apply in the UK. Thank you very much, Fraser. Fraser Rhodes is part of the team which designed and implemented the emergency alert service. Your calls in a moment. 0345 6060 973. As I say, I'm still sceptical about this. I'm not for one moment diminishing the wildfires or diminishing what happened. I just wonder if it could be more localised, as we heard Fraser, who was literally in the team designing it, has said, and whether in other sort of areas, other parts of the country, so as not to diminish and be seen to be crying wolf in some way. It could have been an email or it could have been a text. But what do you think? Your call's next.
This is LBC.
Octopus Energy is now Britain's biggest energy supplier, trusted by over 8 million customers. But did you know we also do electric cars? And what's better with us? You get the whole package. The car, the charger, and the energy. So, if you're looking for some great expert advice on going electric, just search Octopus EV. Octopus EV. Rated excellent on Trustpilot from over 5,000 reviews. Visit octopus.energy/better for verification.
At the coast, one call could save lives.
Coast Guard.
In an emergency, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard.
Driving even a little too fast for the situation is a major cause of collisions, especially on country roads. Think. Don't let your speed creep.
Hi, Mum. Cornwall is absolutely stunning. We love it here. Of course, our Lee thought he was too tough for sun cream and got sunburnt immediately.
Have you put on your sun cream?
He never learns. On the bright side, children's bus travel is free. So we've been riding him around everywhere to keep this lobster out of the sun. And we found this brilliant beach where we even saw a seal. Miss you tons. Love, Sally.
Enjoy great British summer savings, such as free bus travel for children this August. Funded by the UK government.
Get the whole package with Octopus Energy EV. The car, the charger, and the energy. Octopus Energy EV. Rated excellent on Trustpilot from over 5,000 reviews.
Henry Riley on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We're talking about the emergency alerts. Slightly worrying. I mean, a few of my colleagues have played it. I've decided not to play it, but a few of my colleagues, and I did on Saturday morning, playing the sound, and he was making the point, Fraser, that in the US you could be fined if you play it. Well, of course, we're talking about the emergency alert, which was on Friday night. And what you think, whether you think it's government overreach, whether you think in some way it could undermine other attempts when they do seek to implement this. Let's go first to Alan, who's in Cheshire. Hello, Alan.
Hi there, I think you're undermining it yourself because have you forgotten already those 19 houses that burnt down in Stourbridge?
Oh, I know.
And this is the worst we've ever had in this country. So you're belittling the points a bit. Because,
not at all.
Yeah, because, it is called an alert, and that alert is for the welfare of the country. Are people going to turn their smoke alarms off now that disagree with it?
No, of course. Come on,
no,
Alan. What I'm talking about is I'm not saying there's no emergency alert. I'm saying you do it in areas that have been particularly badly affected, so they know it is just that, an emergency. Sadly,
but if you go across the country, the whole bloody place is like a tinderbox. Everything is white.
There were 43 fires on Friday. I agree with you. And
there you are.
But as our technology correspondent Will Guy said, you have the ability to make it village, even street specific. And I think if you can do that, then you should, because otherwise...
Well, that just adds some more costs if you have one thing.
The other argument, Alan, is if you are an idiot who's going to light a disposable barbecue, or you're going to... I think Sheila Fogarty was saying people were lighting fireworks and stuff on Friday and Saturday. If you are an idiot who's going to do that, do you think an emergency alert's going to stop anyone?
Well, it most probably won't, but I'm just saying that, every area in the UK, virtually, especially in the south, is white. And they're tinderboxes, and you just need a reminder of even though the temperature's going cooler, this is going to be around for months still.
Yeah.
And just
I'm
to look
not
at
undermining
those
it.
houses being burnt
I
down
agree,
in Stourbridge is a great reminder.
I'm not for one moment, honestly, we are on the same page when it comes to the severity of climate change and of the wildfires that we've had. I agree with you there. Specifically on the alert, I just don't know that it's necessarily been a good, or that it was that positive. But we disagree on that.
Yeah, I think Clever is just putting a point for the sake of it. And most probably agrees with what's been done, but he's just doing it for it because he's in opposition.
It would have been nice to have some consensus, I suppose, but maybe I'm slightly to blame for that as well. Alan, thanks in Chesham, appreciated. Alex is in Huddersfield. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Henry, you all right?
Yeah, are you going to disagree with me on this? What do you think?
No, I'm kind of in the middle, so I'll paint the picture. I'm driving down the M62 Friday night. I'm doing about 70 mile an hour in fast lane, as they call it.
Hopefully,
the third lane.
right, on a motorway, yeah, good. Right.
Yeah, my phone's on hands-free, with my sat-nav running.
Yeah.
I get the alert. I think, oh my God, Russia's nuking us. So, I nearly crashed my car.
Yeah.
So I can really sympathise with, was it James Cleverly that said he nearly crashed his car?
I think that was actually Nick Ross, who used to present Crime Watch.
Well, I also nearly crashed my car because, obviously, when you get an alert like that with the sound it made, I instantly look at the message.
But you must have got it before, during COVID, although this was the first nationwide one, I suppose, but we did have that alert, didn't we?
Yeah, I do remember it vaguely, but obviously I wasn't driving at the time. But yeah, I honestly nearly crashed my car because you're going to want to read what it says. And
when did you get round to reading it?
I literally read it as I was driving, which I probably shouldn't admit, but you're going to do. And then when I saw that it was just about wildfires, obviously I let out a big breath of fresh air and carried on about my way. But honestly, I nearly did crash my car.
If you were not driving at 70 miles an hour and you were sitting in a pub or somewhere else, what did you think of the alert as a whole? I mean, because this government report is saying that if it's overused, it's counterproductive, and you've also got the former guy from Crime Watch, Nick Ross, who's on the Fire Chiefs Council Board of Trustees, saying it was inappropriate. Do you tend to agree with that, or where do you stand?
I think it was overkill in the respect of what it was warning about. I think a simple text message, like surely the government can text everyone, I think that would have sufficed.
Yeah.
I also think that just stopping selling disposable barbecues, for a few weeks is not going to harm anyone, but it's going to definitely protect wildlife. And yeah, like you said, you can geo-target different areas.
Yeah.
And they can also change the tone per, that sound that it made was perfect for if there were a nuclear weapon heading for us and we've only got 20 minutes to say goodbye. But when it's just about wildfires, just a little ping on your phone sufficed.
Yeah, it could have been an email, as I said earlier on. Alex, again, good to hear from you. Julie says, I turned the alert system off during COVID and never switched it back on. Why? I consider myself to be reasonably intelligent, so don't need the nanny state telling me not to use a disposable barbecue or flick a ciggy butt onto the tinder dry ground. This was not a national emergency, and if they sound this alert for similar things in the future, people will not take hearing the alarms seriously. Darren says, as a prison officer, I was quite happy with the emergency text sound. It allowed us to discover around 4 phones on our wing. Let's go to Steve, who's a first-time caller. Oh, in fact, the other thing that I remember hearing on Saturday morning was people texting from Gloucestershire, from Liverpool, saying they got the alert in Welsh first rather than English. I mean, they don't even live in Wales. And again, I trust Will Guyatt on these matters, and he was saying to Tom Swarbrick that they can make it street-specific. So why, and I'm not an idiot, I understand geography, but why were people in Gloucestershire and in Liverpool getting messages in Welsh? And also, and I'm not going to start around the Welsh language, I'm not going there, but given 80% of people in Wales don't speak Welsh fluently, should it be flashed up in English first in Wales rather than Welsh? If you're in Wales, then feel free to set me straight. 0345 6060 973. Steve's a first-time caller in Ipswich. Hello, Steve.
Good evening, Henry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah,
good. I agree fundamentally in the vast majority with you. I live, as I say, just slightly north of Ipswich, and I'm only actually about half-hour drive from Dunwich.
Right.
Where, obviously, 2 weeks ago, there was a massive fire.
Yeah, of course.
And, we've had this weather for 2, maybe 3 months now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a new thing. We've all had to live with this, and it's common sense, my friend. I smoke, so whilst I'm driving along, normally in usual conditions, I know obviously to go down the route of littering shouldn't do it, I do put the cigarette butts out the window. What I've been doing...
Well, I've got to tell you off for that. Shouldn't be doing that, Steve.
I know, I'm aware of that.
Come on.
But what I've been doing of late is I take an empty Coke bottle with me with a splash of water in the bottom, driving along, finish the cigarette, put it in there, do top up. End of the day, chuck the Coke bottle away, new one ready for the next day.
You're doing your bit. He's doing his bit.
It's common sense. Do we need to be told to have common sense? Because my simple fact, and this really is the point, the Muppets that are creating these fires through purpose or accident, they're still going to be Muppets.
Well, that's my issue with it as well.
An alert to their phone,
I mean, if you're still lighting fireworks, if you're lighting fireworks over the weekend and still having a disposable barbecue, then you need your head checked.
The alert's not going to make them go, oh, crikey, really? Oh, thank God for letting me know. I shouldn't have done that.
I think you're right. And are you going to? One thing I am worried about, Stephen. I'm not intruding into your sort of daily habits, but are you going to make sure you keep that Coke bottle on you then, rather than flicking it out the window in future? I bet you're not.
It's certainly something that wouldn't harm.
Yeah.
Because obviously, every single cigarette butt adds up to however many hundreds of thousands every year.
Yeah.
And I get that. And it does cause no harm. So it is actually something that I'm sitting there thinking, that's not a bad idea, actually. So, yeah, probably.
Okay. And what made you pick up the phone to LBC for the first time, Stephen? It's the first time you've called, I read.
Well, yeah, I've been listening to LBC now for probably about a year.
Oh.
And I've listened to this throughout the entire day, so I've heard everyone's perspective. I heard earlier Sheila was talking to a motorcyclist.
Sheila and I disagree on this,
He nearly got knocked off his bike, or he nearly lost attention. So I've heard so much through the day. But my simple fact, this is an emergency alert system. Yes, a fire is an emergency, and I get that, but I haven't got a fire outside my house. And common sense dictates to me I'm not going to do stupid things that would create a fire.
Thanks for calling LBC for the first time, Stephen. Make sure you call again, 0345 6060 973. Nicholas says, it was abused, Henry. I got my alert at 1904, 2008 and 10 past 4 the next morning. Same alert, same warning. Why? It should have been reserved for a fallout after an atom bomb. Nicola and Whetstone. Well, I think we can bring the threshold down a little bit from an atom bomb, but why did you get 3? Not that I'm jealous, but I'm confused. Did you get one in... Are you near Whetstone? But why would you get 3? Have you got different phones or something? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Another one here from Deb says, I live in Bristol on the top floor of a block of flats. I woke up Friday morning to a very strong burning smell, proper burning, not someone with burnt toast. It turns out it was smoke from the wildfires in Wales, and thankfully neither I nor my neighbours were in danger. It was a few people who were annoyed by the alert. It's fine with me. They'll get over it, and hopefully there will be less fires, says Deb in Bristol. If it's proven that this causes one less fire, I'm all for it, Deb. I just worry that the people who are being the idiots in the first place, it won't impact them. And I think it could have been more localised. But anyway, that's my view. What's yours? More calls in a moment. Also,
we had a good conversation. One of the things he is going to do, I think he's going to open up the North Sea. That'll make UK pretty rich, I'll tell you.
A familiar argument. That's the President of the United States speaking in the last few minutes about a conversation he's had with Andy Burnham. Donald Trump's been saying lots of pretty notable things today, including threatening to bomb an ally and praising the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. We'll get more details on that next. 7:30 is the time. The news is with John Stratford.
Downing Street insisted Friday's warning, broadcast to millions of mobile phones, advising against using disposable barbecues, was an entirely appropriate use of the emergency alert system. The government says the message was issued at the request of fire services as they continue to tackle wildfires. Donald Trump has threatened to bomb US ally Oman if it gets in the way of a peace deal with Iran. The president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has had what's been described as a lengthy, in-depth and very productive meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bonnie Tyler's life has been celebrated at a funeral in South Wales following the singer's death in Portugal last month, aged 75. Fans applauded as her coffin was carried into Swansea Minster. LBC weather, outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow with a high of 26.
LBC
At Waitrose, you know you're a food lover when 3 for £12 on a range of mix and match summer barbecue meant not only was the get-together a hit, but lunch the next day and the day after that. Make it a summer to remember with 3 for £12 on our delicious barbecue range, including citrus herby halloumi kebabs, smoky king prawns with a punchy Creole sauce, and juicy British oak smoked beef burgers. Available now at Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Selected stores and lines, subject to availability. Prices may vary in Channel Islands, Little Waitrose and partners and concessions.
Big Motoring World is the nation's biggest used car supermarket, so we go big on choice. With thousands of cars like Audi, BMW, Citroen, Fiat, Ford, Honda, Jaguar, Kia, Land Rover, Lexus, Mercedes-Benz, Mini, Nissan, Peugeot, Polestar, Renault, Seat, Skoda, Tesla, Toyota, Volkswagen and Volvo. Whew. Find the car you really want at... Visit bigmotoringworld.co.uk to verify comparison and for T's and C's. Nation's biggest refers to cars in stock.
Go all Irish to France with great low prices. With Irish Ferries, you can for less. Irish Ferries. See travel differently. T's and C's apply.
At the coast, one call could save lives.
Coast Guard.
In an emergency, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard.
Driving even a little too fast for the situation is a major cause of collisions, especially on country roads. Think. Don't let your speed creep.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC with Henry Riley. Text 84850.
7:32, we're talking about the emergency alert. I clearly have irritated some people by saying I wasn't massively in favour of it. It didn't bother me. Look, it's fine, but I'm not one of these idiots who's lighting barbecues or throwing fireworks in Merseyside, am I? I mean, ultimately, this is what is happening, and so I think certain people clearly have been more affected than this by others. I've no doubt that the wildfire is serious. Ultimately, we're talking about whether having an alert such as... We're getting sort of slightly, we're chilling out we started with the iPhone alarm. We are taking your suggestions on this, by the way, 0345 6060 973, what you change the alert to. Send in your suggestions and we won't get round to them. Let's talk other matters. A number of things going on the other side of the pond, in particular with regard to the main man, Donald Trump. And he has just been speaking in the last few minutes about Andy Burnham and North Sea oil again. Let's get the very latest on that and other stories with James Goodison, who's LBC's Washington correspondent, and joins me now. James, let's start with President Trump's comments in the last few minutes. Evening.
Yeah, good evening, Henry. The President at the White House today hosting various events and taking questions from the press. And in the last sort of 30 minutes or so, fielding a question specifically about Andy Burnham, the new Prime Minister. The two haven't actually met yet in person, but have spoke on the phone. And here's what the President had to say about that.
I spoke to him. We had a good conversation, a couple of them. We had a good conversation. One of the things he is going to do, I think he's going to open up the North Sea. That'll make UK pretty rich, I'll tell you. If he opened up the North Sea, now he's got an immigration problem and he has an energy problem. He would have solved one of his problems. That would be a big thing. That would make UK rich. If you open up the North Sea, it's one of the great finds anywhere in the world. And if they would open up the North Sea, UK would be rich again.
Henry, if at any point you speak to President Trump about the UK, he always brings up the two issues he did just there, immigration and the cost of energy. He's consistently banged on about them. He's put it on his social media. He said it to Andy Burnham's predecessor, Sir Keir Starmer, as well, and now clearly has made the point clear to Mr. Burnham. In fact, I was just sort of reflecting a bit earlier after he'd said that. What did President Trump make of Andy Burnham when he first got the job? He called him extremely liberal, the mayor of a town, and said that he probably wouldn't open up the North Sea. Well, clearly, Andy Burnham has given him a sense that that is the way it's going. So clearly good news for Mr. Burnham. You want to keep good relationships with President Trump, want to keep him on side, and perhaps we can glean a bit of British policy through at the President at the White House.
Well, and speaking of their relationship, Andy Burnham thought he was talking to a senior member of his team, we learn, who turns out it wasn't. What do we know?
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. Susie Wiles is the chief of staff for President Trump, and at some point we're not clear when either, if Mr. Burnham had already walked through the door of number 10 or not, but he had received a message from someone claiming to be Susie Wiles. We don't know what that message said, but at some point, there was a bit of a back and forth before Andy Burnham got sort of suspicious that it wasn't her. We're not sure whether it was sort of an email, WhatsApp, text, etc., but clearly did happen. Downing Street says the messages were of no significance, no information swapped between them, and that Andy Burnham realised quite quickly that something was off. But it did send quite notable alarms ringing over here, because the British Embassy actually went up to the White House to talk to them about it, specifically because last year Susie Wiles's number was sparking off spam messages to business leaders and senators up here on Capitol Hill. US law enforcement last year launched an investigation into it, and she privately told people she'd been hacked. The White House said this incident had nothing to do with it, but quite a bizarre situation and a lot of unanswered questions.
Meanwhile, the president is threatening to bomb someone else. Who now and why?
Oman, they are the opposite side of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran. They are an ally of the United States. I can't repeat the president's exact words on this issue, Henry, on live radio, but he effectively said he would bomb them very badly.
I'll fill in the dots. Right.
With the Strait of Hormuz, indeed. Oman are quite an interesting position because they played a key role in getting this memorandum of understanding agreed between Iran and the US, which of course has now fallen apart. And recently there's been negotiations going on between Oman and Iran about how exactly shipping will travel through the Strait of Hormuz. It's effectively sort of a separate discussion to the idea of reopening the strait as a whole. But recently, I'm getting the sense in Washington that the White House seems to think Oman may actually be undermining the US position in the Middle East, or indeed working against American interests in regards to negotiations. Because Iran, from their point of view, if they have an agreement with Oman about, where the ships need to sail in order to get out of the strait or get into the strait, that, I think, in their minds would give them a degree of legitimacy and strengthen their claim, which they are pushing at the moment, that they deserve a right to have a control over the traffic in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. That, of course, a red line for the US. They don't want that. It would hand Iran control that they've never seen before. From the US's point of view and President Trump's point of view, he's shifted now from this military response to an economic response. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said last week, forget Epic Fury, that's the name of the operation that started this war, forget Epic Fury, we're going for economic fury. So we're expecting a huge amount of further sanctions and tariffs to really tighten the grip on Iran alongside that US blockade. The US strategy as of now, sit with their ships just outside of the Strait of Hormuz, try and stop Iran getting supplies, disrupt their economy, weaken their resolve and try and get them round the table. But Iran, for all intents and purposes, seem to be digging in because they can see the damage that this war is having on President Trump, both at home and indeed abroad.
And lastly, Jay, it's extraordinary this is all in the last 24 hours or so, but President Trump also has been talking about, or indeed praising, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Of course, the Korean War, which hasn't officially ended, has been frozen since the 1950s, and I think the US have close to 30,000, I might need to check, about 30,000 troops on the border. What's he been saying about the North Korean dictator?
So, of course, everyone will remember in President Trump's first term, Henry, that historic summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump, really seen as sort of a real notable moment, which really fizzled out and didn't come to anything, especially in that region. But the words today will send a shiver down the spine of a lot of US allies in Asia. Effectively, President Trump said on Truth Social that he was effectively quite annoyed about these military operations that were going to be happening, exercises between the US and South Korea. They happen every year. They're a cornerstone of the US and South Korea alliance. He said, it's too late for me to cancel them, but I'm going to strip back the amount of US forces that are involved. Why is that? Why is he reducing it? Two reasons. One, he says that North Korea and Kim Jong-un have been unthreatening and respectful. I think perhaps that will come as a shock to South Korea, who have been the repeated subject of threats from North Korea's seemingly growing nuclear arsenal. And then secondly, the reason for the president stripping back these military exercises is because South Korea didn't join, in his words, the denuclearization of Iran. So it seems like the president is effectively saying to allies in Asia, if you haven't come and helped me significantly with the war in Iran, then we could possibly take a step back from historic military deals. South Korea are already frustrated by tariffs. Japan will be worried about these words as well. And more widely, Henry, gives you a sense sense of how much oxygen the war in Iran's taking up for the president, because their only aircraft in the Pacific has now been diverted to the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump saying he also has, been received, or there's been an acknowledgement from Kim Jong-un. Maybe he's pushing for another summit there, because one theme we've really seemed to recognise over the past couple of weeks here in Washington is that President Trump wants some sort of diplomatic victory to be able to show the American people ahead of the midterms. It doesn't look like it's going to be Russia-Ukraine. It looks less likely than ever it's going to be in Iran. The deal in the Middle East with the Gaza Strip seems to be falling apart. So maybe he's pivoting once again to Korea.
Thank you, James. Good to hear from you. James Goodison is LBC's Washington correspondent. We've only got the emergency alert to worry about. Let's see what Andy and Newham thinks of that. Andy, hello.
Hello, Henry.
What do you think?
Well, I think we need to put this into context of where we're at. The weather we've had for the last series of months is unusual. It's like nothing we've had in the past. The country is drier than it's ever been in the past. Our fire services over the last 15, 20 years have been hollowed out, and their ability to cope with any mass wildfires are limited. Hence the talks that are being currently proposed to look forward as this sort of weather can be expected with global warming. And the fact the request came from the fire services themselves to make the alarm, I think we need to take that into account.
That's true.
But
and as a politician, if you hadn't done that, we'd rightly be criticising Andy Burnham.
Exactly so. I mean, it's always easy to be wise after the event.
Yeah.
The other thing about you saying about using the regional system, with the moment when the height of at the time of holidays. Now, people in London are probably unlikely to be setting off wildfires in the middle of London. One could argue that there wouldn't be a need to sort of alert Londoners.
Sure.
However, they're travelling. We are travelling around the country on holiday. So the important thing here was to highlight the importance and severity of the situation. The idiots that we have in society who don't take notice of these sort of things are still going to be idiots. Your previous caller said about common sense. Well, I have many examples of where you have people who do have common sense, but it's always the idiots that spoil it for everyone else.
Yes, and I'm particularly concerned as well by people turning off the alert, because if there is something genuine, and by the way, not if you're a victim of domestic abuse, or there are clearly legitimate reasons turning off. But if you're irritated and you're sort of saying boo to nanny with regards to the nanny state, then you sort of need to give your head a bit of a check, I think, because there's going to be a time, and let's hope not, but clearly there could be a time where this is going to be needed, and you're going to miss out on something rather serious.
Exactly so, and I think that's a point well made. It really should be a conscious, really good reason for people to turn these sort of things off, because they're there for a reason. They're there for a purpose, to protect us.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Andy, great to hear from you. Thank you in Newham. Stephen is a first-time caller in Dartford. Hi, Stephen.
Hiya, Henry.
Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. What do you think?
I don't get what the fuss is all about. I think, fair enough, there was a bit of a fright when the warning went off.
Yeah.
I thought
what were you doing?
Vladimir might have pressed a button. I was actually, I was in a hotel lobby, so as I was leaving the hotel, everyone else's phones went off as well. So everyone was looking around trying to figure out what was going on. But once you read the warning, you sort of got it and it made sense. It was particularly hot that day. You understood sort of the context that we were in and how hot it's been in this season, and it just made sense. You got over it. You got over the fright. I just don't get what the fuss is all about.
Well, I tell you, I'm not necessarily making a fuss out of it. I just wonder that if you do this too often, and I know this is the first time it's been done nationwide, fine, but if you do it too often, then it loses its impact. And I think ultimately it needs to be done, but it needs to be done for imminent danger, which there clearly were in parts of the country, but not in all parts of the country. And also, it seems strange that you do an alert, which people, and there's not many of them, fine, but people who don't have a smartphone, they've got a flip up or a Nokia or whatever you call it, I mean, they're not going to get it either.
Well, I don't really. I think you sort of answered your first question.
All right, go on.
It's the first time that they've used it.
Yes.
But then on your second point, it should be used for sort of imminent threats. You have to sort of assess what's the value of the alert in imminent threats. I was just talking to my sister, and we were sort of thinking through it. in a sort of, God forbid, terrorist incident, what's the actual value of doing it then? Is it to avert people from a certain location? Here, it's to actually inform people's decision-making over the weekend, perhaps, or into the sort of next few weeks as the summer wraps up. So I think there's a reason as to why they've done it. They've thought through how it influences people's decision-making. And look, common sense isn't common, and government can't make decision-making on common. I liked your previous caller's point on sort of idiots still being idiots. The government had to tell us when and how to wash our hands over the past, over a space of 2 years during a global pandemic. So I think that's enough to tell you that these things still have to be said, and the public still needs to be informed.
But the people who are doing it, and look, in a lot of cases, as you know, these are being done by idiots who are, I don't know, throwing cigarettes or lighting barbecues or fireworks or whatever. Is that message really going to reach them? Because I don't know if it is. Are they going to take any notice?
But then, as the previous caller said, the counterfactual would be the government didn't do enough. The government didn't warn them enough. Yeah. Yes, you can't stop people from doing things. However, they can't say that they haven't been pre-warned. And in fact, I think any sort of tougher action after the fact actually is warranted when people know that actually we were warned, people were told not to do this. And so I think there may be sort of tougher scrutiny on people who do stupid things after the fact.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty sensible. Stephen, thanks for calling in and for being a first-time caller. Appreciated. Stephen there in Dartford. More in a moment. It's 7:46.
On the latest episode of The Newsagents.
Why is one of Reform's most senior politicians threatening the board of Vodafone with jail time?
Get the latest episode of The Newsagents with Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. Listen or watch on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Up to speed.
Your Formula One podcast.
Round 12, we head to the Netherlands for the Dutch Grand Prix.
New episodes every Monday and Thursday on YouTube or Global Player.
Chase gives you 2% cash back on your everyday spending.
Every day? Like Monday's train to work?
Yes.
Tuesday's big shop?
Yes again.
Wednesday's coffee treat?
Yes, cash back.
Thursday's lunch, Friday's brunch and Saturday's takeaway?
Yep, and yep.
Super.
Oh, nothing on Sundays.
I take it easy.
Lovely. Enjoy 2% cash back on debit or credit card spending on groceries, restaurants, everyday transport and fuel. Search Chase Bank. 18 plus UK residents. Chase current and saver accounts required. Maximum £20 per month. Eligibility, qualification, exceptions and T's and C's apply.
When it comes to shutters, you need to call in the experts. That's why thousands of happy customers choose Hillary's every year. Every one of our shutters comes with a 10-year guarantee as standard. And our UK-made shutters can be fitted in as little as 3 weeks. And if you find a cheaper quote, we'll match it, because we know you want the wow factor for your windows at the right price. And until the 24th of August, you can save up to 50% off selected shutters in our summer sale. So get window wise and book your free in-home appointment today at hillarys.co.uk. Conditions apply.
Everything cake at Ocado. We've got birthday cakes, Jaffa cakes, pancakes, fish cakes, rice cakes, oat cakes. Basically, you can have your cake and eat it, as well as non-cakey stuff at Ocado, the online supermarket. Give us a try and get 25% off the food in your first shop and free delivery. Geographical and other restrictions apply. New customers only. Min spend £60. Max saving £20. Charges apply. Terms at ocado.com.
This is LBC with Henry Riley.
10 to 8 is the time. Coming up after 8, something my colleague Tom Swarbrick touched on as well. And if you listen to Nick's programme this morning, James Cleverly was on talking about this. Let me not drop the bits of paper. Here we go. The Tories are pledging a crackdown on illegal traveller sites. Police will get new powers to ban travellers permanently from unauthorised sites under a proposed crackdown announced by the Conservatives. We'll be talking a bit more detail about that from 8 o'clock. And it's all very well removing them from illegal sites. Great. I mean, that should be done. But also, there is an argument to say, if all of their planning applications get refused, where are they meant to go? So we'll talk about that a little bit more after 8. First, it's the alert that's got you talking, and Abby is in Felixstowe. Hello, Abby.
Hello.
Hello. You sound very jolly. What do you think about this?
Well, I was out enjoying a rare night out with the hubby on Friday night. We
Where
were
were
at
you? Down the
playing
pub, were
pool
you?
at the snooker hall.
Oh,
no,
very
playing
nice.
pool at the snooker hall. It was all very quiet.
Yeah.
And the alert went off. But neither of us thought, that's a bit excessive. Our first thought was, good, they're making sure that everybody takes this seriously.
Yeah, fair enough.
So a couple of points that I thought were important to make. One is, so being in Felixstowe, obviously the Dunwich Heath fires were quite a significant thing. We were in Cornwall when that happened. But,
What did you say, the Daventry fires, did you say?
No, the Dunwich Heath, the fires in Dunwich.
Oh, Dunwich, yeah.
Yeah, but we were in Cornwall at the time on holiday. But, if the Suffolk Fire Service needed to go up there, and perhaps the Norfolk Fire Service did as well, if you got an alert if we got an alert in Suffolk, but there was a fire in Essex, and the Suffolk Fire Service needed to go there, and they're not going to be able to get to an emergency in the next county along, for example, if they go into your house to rescue your shed because you've accidentally set it on fire with a barbecue or something, So my point is that
But you don't necessarily need that if you're living in Scotland, do you? Well, I suppose they didn't get it in Scotland, actually, but if you're living in Wales.
I mean, there are parts of Wales that are having issues.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I know what you mean, but I don't know, in the areas where they're not, you see what I mean?
In the areas where they're not, if there is a significant event going on in, say, the county over or an area over from them, then their fire service may be called into it. But the point about the alert is, I think, not just to make people aware, remember not to flick the cigarette out of the window, or don't have a disposable barbecue, but also don't put additional strain on the emergency services that are already under strain because of this.
Ultimately, though, I think you're very sensible, Abby, right? And you and the hubby, as you called him, when you're down playing snooker, you're not the sort of idiots that are going to cause this, and you're going to take notice of the alerts. Of course you are. Whereas, Henry from Putney or whatever, who's a complete idiot, is not going to pay any attention whatsoever. He's not going to care. He's barely going to... He's going to see the alert. He's going to think it's funny. I mean, it's just not going to go through. It's not going to influence him.
It might not influence him, but, what happens if he gets the alert and he goes, I don't care about that, I'm still having my disposable barbecue in the middle of a field. Yeah. But his mates go, come on, mate, they've sent an alert out. This is an important thing, I think that it makes people think we are all responsible. And so, yes, common sense should prevail. But common sense is the sense of the most people, right? The common people.
Are we?
And the sense of common people in this country.
Origins, yeah. Oh, I know.
Over half of us voted to leave.
Oh God, let's not get into Brexit, please.
I'm not sure we could go on.
We're not doing that, please. No. Abby said the B word. Let's ban her. No, Abby, we'll let you off. That's a yellow card. No, in all seriousness, absolutely fair enough to raise it. I just can't get into that. Although, talking of common sense, you know the thing that really does get my goat at the moment is people walking around with no tops on. Where on earth did we become so uncouth where people are just walking around, real sort of oafish behaviour, not wearing tops? People were doing it on the district line. I was coming into work and there was a group of about 3 guys with sort of more tattoos than chest hair. And I was thinking, what on earth are you doing walking around? And also, it's quite unsightly, and even if it is sightly, I don't want to see it, put it away. And it's sort of in the weather, it's a bit whatever, and they're wearing their tops like they've just done 12 rounds in the boxing ring. Can you have 12 rounds? I don't know. I don't watch boxing. But that really annoys me. Elizabeth is in Surbiton. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Henry. How are you?
Yes, very well. There's some nice pubs in Surbiton. I've spent a lot of my years in Surbiton. What did you want to say?
I just wanted to say, and I said to your team, that we've just come back from a holiday. And when we were on holiday, we met a family from Manchester, Greater Manchester, funnily enough. We assisted them into the sea because the rocks and things were a bit sort of slippery. And just to make some conversation with them, we said, Andy's in a bit of trouble at the moment, going on a holiday and sending out the emergency alert. And they went, what? Who?
What, is it about Andy Burnham?
Okay. Yeah. Talking about Andy Burnham, they didn't even know that he was current Prime Minister or that they had a woman elected as the mayor. And I thought, wow. And these are a lovely, lovely family, kind of middle-class British family. And I thought, wow. And I don't want to make assumptions and everything else, but people aren't really as informed as they should be. And I think maybe some clarity needs to go out from the government. And I agree with what they sent out most certainly, but I think maybe some clarity associated with what the complete understanding is regard to the message that's going out. But I thought, if you're not even in touch with, who the current Prime Minister is, I don't know, what news channel are you listening to? How up to date are you with the crisis that's going on? And I mean, talking about Britain being a tinderbox was enough for me to think. And I'm just looking at our own lawn. I think, oh my God, there's no hope. I'm glad none of us are smokers.
No need to show off. Well, I haven't got a lawn where I am. But the point is, I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head, actually. And people are just quite stupid. And sort of there's a lot of assumed knowledge. And if that assumed knowledge is who's the Prime Minister and we don't necessarily know... I mean, people have got better things to do, let's be honest. People have got other things to do in their lives, but you'd like to assume there'd be a bit of sort of common knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you next time in the Victoria. Thanks, Elizabeth in Surbiton. David is a first-time caller in Norwich. Hello, David.
Hi, good evening, Henry.
Evening. What did you want to say, sir?
So, I mean, I think firstly it's important we don't minimise the damage and threats that this fire can and could cause, these fires can and could cause in the future. However... I do have some issues with what happened, and threefold. So, I mean, there's the message wording itself, 2, the degree of the alert, and 3, the general proportionality. And I'll start with the message wording. Now, I will paraphrase slightly for your audience, but believe me, I'm not going to take anything out of context. Nothing I say will do that. But here you go.
You sound like a lawyer, but yeah, go on then.
Well, I'm gonna because I'm not reading the whole thing. You're free to do so in your own right afterwards. But there's a very high risk of wildfires nationally.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Residents should not undertake any activity that could start a fire. Okay, that's really the gist of it. Nowhere does it say inside, outside, private land, public land.
Yeah.
So if I want to, start my stove at home, if I want to turn on my combi boiler. I
light a candle.
Light a candle. I absolutely should not do any of that. So I think we can't really forgive them for getting the wording incorrectly there. If they said something like you should not have any open flame on public land, especially near woodland, I would have a little bit more sympathy for that wording.
But we've just spoken about people not necessarily knowing. I mean, would they view a cigarette butt, for example, as that? I don't know. I mean...
Knowing what?
What do you mean? Well, I don't know if people would think, oh, it's fine, the cigarette butt's a tiny little thing, it's not going to cause a massive wildfire. They might not necessarily start a fire if they're camping for marshmallows and warmth and what. Well, I suppose you don't need warmth or marshmallows. But I wonder if you do have to be quite direct, David.
But it wasn't direct, that's my point. It was very
broad
indirect.
Then, broad, that's what you mean, broad.
It was
brush.
Very broad. So to the second point is around alert degree. Now, I happen to work in IT, and we have issues where we have issues with our computers, and we raise alerts up various escalation levels. And anyone who works in similar industries will know that.
Yeah.
Anyone that's woken up their partner in the morning will know that. You first, if you can, start with a gentle nudge on the shoulder. That's the best way to wake them up.
It's normally the other way around, but yeah, go on.
Number 2, your alarm will go off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not very nice either. Number 3, maybe a second alarm will go off, or someone will start shouting and screaming. And it goes up those, and that's the best way to send out information. What happened here is they jumped right to level 11.
A sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Well, not even to crack a nut, to crack anything.
Yeah.
They went straight to 11. What would have been a better approach if they wanted to do this was start a broadcast on the second story of 6 o'clock news, saying, just to let you know, there's going to be an alert tonight, and it's about this.
Yeah.
Now you've covered 50% of the general public will get that information out within 2 hours.
I think you're right.
In a much nicer way.
Yeah.
And then the alert goes out if you really need to. But I would like to give a final point around anyone considering that this entirely proportionate. Given the wording that was said in that message, would you, knowing those facts and knowing your neighbour didn't know them, would you at 2 o'clock in the morning go round, kick their door down and give that information to them?
No. But if they had a barbecue in the garden, I might.
Well, no, but so you wouldn't go and give them that critical information, severe information at 2:00 in the morning. Why is it okay to do it at 7 p.m?
I see what you mean. So that's ultimately the barometer of what warrants an emergency alert. Gotcha. David, thank you for being a first-time caller. Make sure you call again. Thank you very much for all of your calls on that. We are going to move on. Coming up.
It was a big change in our lives and a painful time. And we didn't ever not see each other, but it was difficult for me and her.
That's the actor Ewan McGregor speaking about the rift with his daughter that arose following his divorce. Can you ever really get over a family breakup? We're discussing that after 9. Also,
we asked for our office to be considered for CCTV. We seemingly hadn't met the threshold. And later that day, Jo Cox was murdered.
That's former Labour MP Paula Sheriff talking to us about the threats she's faced and her plan to keep current and former politicians safe. We will also, after the news, discuss travellers. The police could get new powers under the Conservatives to permanently ban them for unauthorised sites. But if so, where do they go?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Downing Street insists Friday's warning, broadcast to millions of mobile phones advising against using disposable barbecues, was an entirely appropriate use of the emergency alert system. The government says it was issued at the request of fire services as they continue to tackle wildfires. Meanwhile, the Housing Secretary says the level of damage done by wildfires in the West Midlands is absolutely horrendous. Angela Rayner's praised the community in Stourbridge, where rapidly spreading flames have destroyed 19 homes. Sandy Shirilka has been to see the devastation at her property.
It is all stained walls. There is nothing inside. There are no floorboards. Everything is collapsed. Whatever metal things where my fridge was is just a broken, bent frame. All my garden is burned.
Most of England and Wales remains in drought conditions, though some rain is forecast. Number 10's refused to comment after it emerged Andy Burnham's exchanged communication with an unknown person posing as Donald Trump's chief of staff. Sources say a few messages of no significance were sent. A decision on new oil and gas extraction in the North Sea could be made in the next few weeks. Consultations on the Rosebank platform west of Shetland and Jackdaw off the coast of Aberdeen have now closed. A vigil to remember former Cambridge professor Jason Arday is taking place in London. He was found dead on Friday, days after resigning from the Faculty of Education, denying allegations of plagiarism. Many other claims the university's youngest black professor made about charity work and his background were also questioned. Belle Ribeiro Addo is his family's MP and says the negative coverage of him took its toll.
For weeks, Jason faced a media onslaught, relentless, merciless. He was a man that was picked apart in the public while those who loved him watched and warned and were not heard.
Princess Eugenie's announced she's named her third child Adelaide. The 15th in line to the throne was born in Portugal 2 weeks ago and has Elizabeth as a middle name in tribute to her great-grandmother, the late Queen. In the city, the FTSE 100 index at the close was down 29.81 at 10,720. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.16. LBC weather. Outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow, brighter and fresher weather following a high of 26. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Henry Riley.
And a very good evening to you. 4 minutes after 8 is the time. If you're wondering, it's not Ian Dale, it's Henry Riley. I'm with you here for the next few weeks. Henry Riley in for Simon Marks, in for Ian Dale. It's lovely to have your company. I'm with you here till 10 o'clock. Coming up after 9, we're talking about divorce, something I haven't experienced because I've never been married. But interesting interview with Ewan McGregor. Don't go and see his new film, by the way. But interesting interview with Ewan McGregor about the relationship breakdown he had with his daughter as a result, and the fact that she almost took it worse than his ex-wife and he did, and that they had to rebuild that relationship. So we'll be talking about whether you can really ever fully recover from a family breakup. So we're talking about that after 9. Be really grateful if you can share your stories on that. But this hour, let's talk to you about a Conservative. Remember them. The Conservative Party have announced a new policy, and this is a crackdown on illegal traveller sites. And it was interesting to me because I was on yesterday evening on my regular show, which is on Sundays from 6, if you're wondering, and we were talking, there was a story about the number of unauthorised sites that travellers are on, that they're using, the fact that that's growing. But they're arguing that they're forced to break the law. And we covered it yesterday, and then coincidentally, strangely, there was this announcement from the... I don't think it was based on our conversation on LBC, because it would have been done ages in advance. But the Conservatives have also come out, and you'll hear in a moment what Nick Ferrari was talking with James Cleverly about, or rather the other way around, James Cleverly was talking to Nick Ferrari about, because he's the sort of been the spearhead for this government policy, or this leader of the opposition policy. And in essence, police will get new powers to ban travellers permanently from unauthorised sites under a proposed crackdown by the Tories. Now, I don't really want to get into a conversation on the ECHR, but just to mark your card, they're arguing that this 5-point plan is one of the advantages you would get if you leave the European Convention on Human Rights, otherwise known as the ECHR. In essence, though, it would mean police could bar travellers from returning to encampments indefinitely once they'd been removed at the request of the landowner. A similar policy was actually introduced by the Conservative government, the previous Conservative government, but was blocked by the courts on human rights grounds, and that prevented travellers from returning to unauthorised sites within a year. My understanding is that was then reduced back to the original of 3 months. So they were trying to, the Conservatives, reduce that significantly. And Sir James Cleverly, the Shadow Communities Minister, said in some areas illegal sites and unauthorised development of legal sites is having a major negative impact on the local population, and residents feel abandoned. I agree with him wholeheartedly. People who are going into sites that are owned by other people is illegal. No one's disputing that it's illegal, and it's a blight on local communities, and it's something we don't need. Likewise, if you are if you remember the traveller community and you are renovating a legal site, but you're doing it without planning permission and you're trying to do that retrospectively, that clearly is a massive issue as well. And that shouldn't be allowed because, again, you should have that planning permission. But the sympathy I do have is, where are these people going to go? Because if councils aren't doing enough to house the traveller community, and certainly from what I hear from members of that community, councils are basically given up, and there is that level of discrimination where they will simply, on a planning permission, say, well, if you're a traveller, or if they have any inclination that you might be, they'll say, well, do you know what, when we're sort of delaying this process, we're slowing it down, and therefore you've got nowhere to go. So if they're not going to go on illegal sites, understandably, I agree with that, then fine, let's clamp down on that. If also they are illegally renovating legal sites, or they're retrospectively asking for planning permission, we don't want that either, because you don't want to buy a beautiful part of the country and then it's sort of within 24 hours it's tarmacked over. And the local community rightly is saying, well, hold on, how's this happen? We've got to pay X, Y, Z for a house, and the next thing we know, there's without planning permission, there are all these properties that are living on valuable land. I get that, and I understand that. But equally, where are these people going to go, right? There's a lot of prejudice when it comes to the traveller community, and like everything, people have had bad experiences with X, Y, and Z. But also, they are human beings with the same rights, the same human rights, crucially, as everyone else. And if there's nowhere for them to go, then what should they do? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. I'd like to hear your experience from this. I read Basildon in Essex is an area that's seen a lot of these illegal sites. It's not just in Essex, by the way. It's countrywide. Various counties, most counties, I'd argue, in the UK have had to deal with this. If you're a local resident, perhaps even, I don't know, a councillor, but likewise, if you are just someone who is living locally and this has impacted, it's blighted the area, then please do let me know. 0345 6060 973. Also, if you are a traveller yourself, please do call me and talk to me about the difficulties, because I don't know. I'm not in that community. I don't know how difficult it is. And I'd be after you to enlighten me this evening. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Let's hear first from what Sir James Cleverly, the Shadow Community Secretary, told my colleague Nick Ferrari on LBC this morning.
This is a breach of the planning system. It is a cynical breach. It's not accidental. And what we have seen is that the human rights laws are being used so people can sidestep the planning system. The coordination between the police and local government could and should be better. Greenbelt protections are being abused. And what we're saying is that we are going to get a grip of this situation so that everybody plays by the same rules. What we're seeing, and we've seen this in a number of places, is traveller communities say that they have special protected ethnic status, that demanding that they move on from places where they have no right to occupy is actually a breach of their human rights.
Is it true? Do they have protected status?
Well, it is an interpretation, and our view is it is a misinterpretation. Now, the fact is, I have said in the past that leaving the ECHR is not a silver bullet, and actually the report that Lord Wolfson produced said that it is a precursor to a wider set of reforms that we are putting in place. But we need to leave the ECHR because the British judicial system is misapplying, in our view, protections that were designed to prevent persecution and murder and victimisation. And it is now being used basically so that people don't have to pay the cost or do the paperwork for planning consents. That is not what it's for.
Sir James Cleverly speaking with LBC's Nick Ferrari this morning, but representatives from the traveller community say it's nigh on impossible to use the planning system legally, which is why travellers resort to building on land illegally. Yesterday I spoke with the chair of the National Travellers Action Group, Cliff Cardona.
The problem is, if we put in for permission on the land before we get to the land, we get refused. 96% of all planning applications get refused. And the only person...
Sorry, I was going to say, why do you think that is?
It's because the terrible NIMBYism that's been in this country for a long time against our community. No matter where we turn up, any part of the countryside, we don't want them next to us. We don't want them next door.
Is there still the culture of breaking the law? Because, I mean, I was reading you in the BBC article where you say you've claims to be evicted 50 times in your life, which is horrific, and you describe it like going through hell and back, and you say, we've broken the law. I'll admit to you today I've done everything to live on land and to get permission to be there. I mean, you can understand why the local authorities might not want to sort of give you that if you're breaking the law.
I can honestly tell you, if you was to speak to any local authorities, get them online and put my name to them and ask them where do I stand in the regards of breaking the law and doing things the right way and the wrong way, they will tell you I have helped more local authorities across the country behind the scenes to help with travellers to get accommodation and get places passed and get the smoke screen gone, from the enforcement, get the enforcement out of the way and deal with the travellers directly, speak to them, understand what they need, see what is the best way around it. There's no good wasting money. We don't want to waste money. Nobody don't. We just need some extra help in the regards of we can do it for ourselves, just give us a hand.
And a hand with specifically developing that land and having permission to do that?
For the development we can do ourselves. As you can see, and there's many different people commenting about it. We can move on to a piece of land on Friday, and by Monday morning, it's a full-fledged site.
Yeah.
So we can do all that ourselves. That's not an issue. The only issue we've got whatsoever is money being spent on enforcement and NIMBYism getting up against us instead of giving us the chance to prove that we can be decent people to live next door to.
Right, and that also means, and you've been open about it before, I'm not having a pop at you here, but you're saying doing things by the book.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to get to a negotiation with somebody who can make decisions before you can do it by the book.
Cliff Cadona speaking with me yesterday. Before we come to your calls on this, it was earlier on this evening that LBC's Tom Swarbrick spoke with Sherry Smith, who is a director of the group Gypsies and Travellers Essex and also a co-founder of the national campaign Drive to Survive, which opposes legislation criminalising nomadic lifestyles. She also insisted that planning laws are simply unfair to the traveller community.
We're not asking for different treatment, we're just asked to be treated the same as everybody else. 91% of planning applications are turned down for gypsies and travellers that have applied for before. 55%, these are rough figures, but according to last research a couple of years old.
Are they turned down because it's inappropriate use of that facility, or do you feel that they're turned down because they're coming from that community? Usually
it's neighbours' complaints. So the most recent one I dealt with was in Willow Green in Essex. I went over and I spoke to a family. They'd purchased the land a year before. I spoke to them. They had children that had Senko needs. It was 2 cousins that had purchased the land. There was going to be 10 plots. They were well within the private land provisions, safety provisions on the site, and so it could be sited safely, and it was near a road and safe access. I went then and knocked on the residents' doors around, and the racism that I heard from the neighbours was just atrocious, and then you have Labour government come out today, or yesterday, saying they're now going to allow green light proposals to housing, social housing and train stations on the edge of Green Belt. Well, why not to gypsy traveller sites? It's still social housing. I feel like we're being treated differently because of our ethnicity.
Yeah. That was Sherry Smith speaking with my colleague Tom Swarbrick a couple of hours ago. As I say, I'm going to put out a plea because I only know about this based on what I read, right? I think at one of my schools, certainly, I was speaking with someone who was from that community. I knew someone from that community, but my experience is pretty limited, I'll be totally honest with you. So I would love you to call in if you're from the traveller community and to talk to me more about it. How difficult has it been to get a planning permission? How difficult has it been to actually go on a legal site? And likewise, if you do oppose this and you think, well, actually, ultimately, we can't accommodate for people who just want to concrete over in some cases and stick loads of caravans and homes there. We can't accommodate that. What's been the experience like in your area? As I say, I read Basildon in Essex has been particularly, has been a bit of a problem there, for example. And in January, the number of unauthorised traveller caravans, so without planning permission, stood at 4,950, which is an increase of 73% when you contrast that with January 2020. So what needs to happen next? 0345 6060 973. Do we need to do more as a society to provide the traveller community with sites that they can use legally? It's 8:17.
Ben Kentish from 10pm.
Reform vow to tear up the disability benefits system and stop foreigners claiming any at all. Is that what you want the government to do? Plus, talking of reform, even as homes are destroyed and crops fail, their deputy leader says today we need to enjoy the impact of climate change. And should sex offenders get the right to a new identity to obscure their criminal past?
Ben Kentish from 10pm. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Hi, Nan. We're having a brilliant time. We went to a theme park and the rides were awesome. We got money off the entry tickets, so Dad even bought us all an ice cream with a flake. Probably not the best idea before going on a roller coaster. Sammy went green after. See you when we get home. Love, Leo.
Enjoy great British summer savings, such as discounted entry to theme parks, soft play and more. Funded by the UK government.
Guys, gals and non-binary pals, we're Copperfield, the breast cancer awareness charity. This is your reminder to check your chest. Learn how at copperfield.org.
When your daughter's wedding guest list is double-sided, enjoy every hand-clapping second of it. Be a step ahead with Barclays Premier, with our best savings rates. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply, T's and C's apply.
Crocs clips just dropped in Happy Meal. Express yourself however you feel. Sports mode, stylish or superstar too. Whatever your vibe, we've got the mode for you. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal.
until the 21st of September from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected bulk or toy. Crocs range comprises toys only while stocks last. Fair ordering policy applies.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC with Henry Riley. Text 84850.
We're talking travellers. The Tories have pledged to get tough on illegal traveller sites. Is that something that's affected your area? And as we hear, unauthorised sites are growing, but travellers say they're being forced to break the law. I wonder if you found yourself in that situation. Cliff Cadona, who you heard a clip of just a moment ago, who I spoke with on my programme yesterday, says there's more need for gypsy and traveller caravans because the population is increasing. Cadona, who has 14 grandchildren and a great-grandchild, says more caravans are the result of a growing gypsy and traveller population. In 2019, councils across England counted 23,500 traveller caravans. By July 2025, there were over 28,650 caravans, a 21% increase. Is this something that has affected your area? Do you support the Tories in getting tough on this? And ultimately, it's a issue that's been dodged, I think, by various governments, and you do sort of understand why, because clearly it's a very contentious one. But again, if not where you live, then where are we going to put their homes? Where are they going to live? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Martin's in Doncaster. Hi, Martin.
Hi, yeah, I just think James Cleverly and local communities need to get... I'm not a traveller myself, but in the area where I am, it's a massive travelling community.
Yeah.
And what you find now, that a lot of the young travellers, they're actually living in houses where we are. But what I'd like to say is
living in houses?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, honestly, round our village.
Why?
Because they're nowhere to go. There's no sites or anything.
So they're not wanting to live in houses?
No, probably not.
Of course, yeah.
But what we're saying is people, local communities and things, a lot of these travellers, they turn up at sites and they leave them a mess and it's illegal and things like that. They see the bad side of it, but they don't meet them and they don't see the good side, what I see. The human beings like me and you, and I honestly, just about everybody who I meet on a daily basis, I can look out the window tonight in the big shop. Some days I can look out the window and at the shops there'll be horses outside the shop, horses, and it's so funny.
Right.
And I tell you what, I've never felt so safe in all my life, the area where I live in. And you need to...
And Martin, there'll be some people who say they've had nothing but bad experiences with that community. So why is that? Is it because there's such a divide between, bluntly, the traveller community and the non-traveller community? And how do you even go about bridging that?
I just don't think they don't meet each other. If they maybe if they met each other,
there's no integration, is there?
No, none at all, none at all. And like I say, I meet them every single day, and everybody says hello. I can be sometimes I can be stood at bus stop and somebody will give me a lift. Yeah, you've got to meet these people.
But how did you meet them then?
It's the area I had to move to, really. My partner lost her house a few years ago, so we moved on to a mobile home park.
Oh, I see, right.
Yeah, the owner of that, he was a traveller, him and his wife.
Right.
They've got a massive house, lovely house.
Yeah. So they showed kindness to you, sort of when you were, or
I wouldn't say kindness.
Right.
The people on the side, they were brilliant, but they weren't fantastic landlords.
Got it.
Yeah, but we moved to a property a few years ago, just in the same village, because we got some money, so we haven't got it now, but we was able to move, but we're still in the same area.
But what would you say, take Basildon in Essex, right, where there's been a 164% increase in unauthorised caravans in the area, and you've got someone who's looking out to what is a privately owned bit of land, but something which is just that, it's greenery, and then the next day, either someone is on it illegally or they haven't got the planning permission and they've paved over it. You understand why the community get worried when sort of 8 to 12 caravans move in.
Oh, no, I agree with you there. No, I totally agree with people.
So where do they go then?
But that's why I agree with you. I actually agree with you, is there need to be more sites for them.
Yeah, the transit sites, aren't there? And from what I can see, there are a lot more that are needed, right?
Yeah, there are a lot more needed. No, I agree with you there. The illegal sites, they shouldn't be doing. But like I say, if you meet these people, they're a good set of people. You know what I mean?
And what do you mean by that? Like, obviously, clearly, like every community, there are people who are very nice, people who are less nice. But
they look out. They look out for each other.
So there's a strong sense of community, you're saying?
Yeah, and I find, because I've got to know a few of them. Listen, I don't have any trouble anyway, but I find that if I got myself into trouble, they'd watch your back. You know what I mean? And it's nice to know that. You know what I mean? And like I say, I think if some communities got to know the travellers, and like James Cleverly and people like that got to know them, but like I say, they'd realise the decent... There's some bad in everybody.
But do you see why people wouldn't necessarily want to get to know them if they've moved in illegally and tarmacked over the sort of local X, Y and Z?
Yeah, but if they were size, you wouldn't have to do that illegally. Yeah, I mean, maybe like what you said.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you there, but ultimately, whilst that is clearly really irritating and there is in a lot of cases nowhere for them to go, it doesn't mean you can just go and break the law and go and, as you say, tarmac on people's land or move in on in their back garden, effectively.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah. No, I agree. I can see why it gets people's backs up, like.
Yeah.
But this is where they've got to talk.
Yeah. All right. Stay well, Martin. Thank you, Martin. There in South Yorkshire. Wonder if you've had a similar experience. 0345 6060 973. This one's come in. Who says, I live on a traveller site. I'm not a traveller. I just know them well and rent a property on a site. They build whatever they want and never worry about the laws or planning permission. One here built a beautiful 4-bed brick house and lived in it for 4 years while the council fought to get it locked down. I think it might mean knocked down. Eventually, they got the court order and knocked it down. 2 days later, the son built it back even bigger and the cycle continues. You also claim that they thieve everything and play stupid when caught. Don't believe a word they say, says Dan. So, clearly two very different experiences there from Martin and then from Dan. John's in Ilford on this. Hello, John. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think that's you. Is it John?
It's John, yeah.
Great, fantastic. What did you want to say, John?
Well, I saw travellers the other day, and some of them had 3 legs, some had 2 arms, and 4
3
arms.
legs, did you say?
And some had 2 heads. No, they didn't. I'm trying to point out a fact here.
Got it.
These were human beings. And we are a country that is actually taking care of people from abroad. What the hell is going on? Why don't we just give these people, why don't we discuss with them and then put their children in good schools, and we will end up, because some of them are probably very intelligent, and if they're given a chance. I don't know why we had this petition. Why do we have this petition? This is what happened in Hitler's Germany. He petitioned everybody off. And we don't want to do that. And we don't give them a chance because we're always fighting them.
I think
they're fighting with us because they can't get a place to live.
I think in some cases the traveller community is definitely discriminated against. I think comparing it to...
Hang on a minute, hang on. Are you sure? I don't believe that.
Right.
Now, come on,
I can hear the dripping with sarcasm there, John. But the point I'm making is, in Ilford... you may not have, it may not be as prevalent. I know you're on the border with Essex there, but if you live in Basildon, for example, and out of your window, the next thing you know, 10 caravans have moved in, I don't think it makes you a NIMBY to wonder how that happened and whether it's sustainable, particularly if it's on an illegal site.
Well, you know why they did it? Because they've got nowhere else to go, because this country...
Sure.
The far
That's not the residents' fault, is it?
No, it's the fault of the country to not take care of the people living in this country and giving them the chance to do what they can do, like we all want to do, is to work and bring our children up and live a better life. For God's sake, we're never going to do that while we're fighting them. I mean, what's this business about some bloke built a house so they can live in it and the council pulled it down? How absolutely negative can that be? We've got to help the people in this country. Why do we not help the people in this country? I can't believe the stupidity of this country and the leaders of this country that look upon them as an enemy. They live in this country. Let's make it easier for them to live better in this country. And who knows, they may become the same as us. And they are the same as us, but I'm saying better chances.
But how do you even go about that integration? I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? I think you said about schools earlier, which I think is a good example of people integrating at that level, you know, obviously kids interacting and parents and whatnot, that will come as a result.
We're never going to get a peaceful world until we make sure, and certainly not a peaceful country, until we make sure that the people already that are here are looked after, and then we can start thinking about people coming across on boats and look after them as well. But it's so uneven, everything's so stupid, because there's no guidance from the government to do the right thing. What else are you going to do with travellers and gypsies that want to move in? You can only argue with them and tell them they can't move there and can't move there. What about I'll tell you what, I travelled to Scotland once on a train, and I travelled for miles and miles, and all I saw was land. And I don't understand why we're making such a fuss about this.
Okay.
Off any motorway, we could take a road and say, right, we're going to make this a road, and that road is going to be turned into a site, and then we can help them. And let's help them, because they will help us, because they work pretty hard, I don't even know travellers. They're very good at working.
OK, thank you very much, John. Build more, says John in Ilford. What do you say? 0345 6060 973. More on that to come. And
a former MP is calling for better safety measures for politicians following the death of Anne Widdecombe. I'm LBC's Alex Taylor-Brown with the story.
A full report from Alex next. 8:30 the time, the news, Daisy Steele.
Downing Street's insisted Friday's warning broadcast to millions of mobile phones advising against using disposable barbecues was an entirely appropriate use of the emergency alert system. The government says it was issued at the request of fire services as they continue to tackle wildfires. On the day the ceasefire with Iran expires, Donald Trump's threatened to bomb a US ally. The president's warning he'll attack Oman if it gets in the way of a deal to open the Strait of Hormuz. A minute's silence has been observed for former Cambridge professor Jason Arday at a vigil in his memory. He was found dead on Friday, days after quitting the university over allegations of plagiarism, which he denied. LBC weather, outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow, brighter and fresher weather following a high of 26.
This is LBC.
Crocs Clips just dropped in Happy Meal. Express yourself however you feel. Sports mode, stylish or superstar too. Whatever your vibe, we've got the mode for you.
Some fun, some food. It's all inside this Happy Meal. Until the 21st of September from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy. Crocs range comprises toys only while stocks last. Fair ordering policy applies.
Take Irish ferries from Dover to Calais, where your pet travels in the pet lounge. You'd be barking not to. Irish ferries. See travel differently.
Hi, Mum. Cornwall is absolutely stunning. We love it here. Of course, our Lee thought he was too tough for sun cream and got sunburnt immediately.
Have you put on your sun cream?
He never learns. On the bright side, children's bus travel is free. So we've been riding him around everywhere to keep this lobster out of the sun. And we found this brilliant beach where we even saw a seal. Miss you tons. Love, Sally.
Enjoy great British summer savings, such as free bus travel for children this August. Funded by the UK Government.
Your holiday park home will be a great investment.
You'll lose thousands on your holiday park home.
All the fees are fully explained.
There are hidden fees you're unaware of.
Yeah, you can easily sell anytime.
You'll be charged a fortune if you sell. You're not always told both sides of the story. If you bought a home on a holiday park, contact Holiday Park Advice Centre. Because if you were missold, we can help. Text ASSIST to 78900. Fees apply.
Henry Riley on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
This says there are sites all over England, plenty of spaces for them all and more. The ones that are on the move do not want to be static. They travel around because they want to. Plenty of spaces all over. A couple of people pointing out about schools, on the schools point, that in some Gypsy Roma traveller communities there is a tradition to take them out of school early, which is a very fair point. Claire says, I think, unfortunately, when you get a traveller community, break through a Stillgate bar and turn up whilst a youth team are playing cricket and set up camp is unacceptable. Not once but twice. I've no sympathy. They leave the site a total mess and threaten dog walkers, says Claire from Reigate in Surrey. Lots of views coming in on this. We'll come straight back to those in just a moment. 0345 6060 973. The Conservatives pledging to crack down on illegal traveller sites. This, as we learn, unauthorised sites are growing, but travellers are saying they're being forced to break the law. They've got to live somewhere. So we surely have to be more proactive in where exactly they go, so we stop having people breaking through, as we say, metal barriers and living in places which it's illegal to do so. 8:34 is the time. Right, in other matters, a month ago, as we reacted here on LBC to the death of Anne Widdecombe and discussed the safety of current and former politicians, my LBC colleague, usually in this slot, Ian Dale, spoke with the former Labour MP Paula Sheriff, who lost her seat in the Commons back in 2019, and her account of the kinds of abuse and threats she's been sent since leaving Parliament was shocking.
Last year, I received a tweet, and it was public, saying, you deserve a 9mm bullet in your head, and I hope you die of cancer, which is lovely. I'm a cancer patient, I'm a cancer survivor, so obviously unpleasant on both accounts. So I contacted my local police force. That's West Yorkshire Police. They came out the following day, took a statement off me. They were with me for a few hours. The man who sent this tweet, or I assume it's a man, is using a pseudonym on X. I reported the tweet or the post to X. They told me it did not contravene their community standards. Like, hello, really? I mean, you deserve a 9mm bullet in your head. Bearing in mind that I live 3 miles from Bristol, where Joe was killed. Yeah. And then. So the police came round, never heard from them, eventually kept ringing them, didn't get in touch. Still haven't heard anything from the police. And I've just looked now prior to taking the call this evening. The last communication I received from the police was the 5th of November last year, saying we're still reviewing this case. We'll get back in touch with you when there's anything to tell you. Well, it's now July and I've heard nothing.
Paula Sheriff, the former Labour MP, speaking here, as I mentioned, to Ian Dale about a month ago. Following that, LBC's Yorkshire correspondent Alex Taylor-Brown has been to meet with Paula to hear more about her experiences and how she thinks current and former politicians could be kept safer. And we've also been in touch with West Yorkshire Police about how it's handled the threats she's faced. And Alex joins me on the line now. Alex Taylor-Brown, LBC's Yorkshire correspondent. Tell us more, Alex.
Yeah, Henry, well, just off the back of what we heard from Paula there about that latest incident where, that horrendous post was sent to her on X, we had a statement from West Yorkshire Police who told us they are now making inquiries into what attempts were made to update the victim. But as we heard from Paula, she reported it, didn't hear anything back, and it was only by her chasing it up herself that they then told her, oh, no, sorry, we couldn't find the person responsible. Obviously, Paula, I went and spoke to Paula after she spoke to Ian. That was in the wake of what happened to Anne Widdecombe last month. Paula was the Labour MP for Dewsbury for 5 years before she lost her seat in 2019. She's been quite open about the abuse that she suffered as a politician during that time and told me it actually started quite quickly into her parliamentary career.
I remember I was sitting in the House of Commons. It was late at night. It was a Monday night, so we voted usually at 10. So it was maybe like 9, half 9 at night. And I got a message via my Facebook account. Somebody said they were going to rape and kill me. And that was a real shock. I remember showing it to one of my colleagues. I was obviously I was a very new MP and I didn't quite know what to do. I didn't know if this was the norm. Showed it to my colleague and she said, my goodness, you need to go to the police. So went to the police.
Now, that abuse and intimidation ramped up. Paula says she was constantly hounded. One man was leaving swastikas outside her constituency office in Dewsbury, but no further action was taken against him. And that's important to remember as well in terms of where, Paula was an MP, Dewsbury. The neighbouring constituency was Batley and Spen, which was Joe Cox's constituency. And Paula says that they raised concerns about safety around the office, but they weren't always acted upon.
We asked for our office to be considered for CCTV. So our office was in Dewsbury Town Centre. And ironically, it was declined. We seemingly hadn't met the threshold. And later that day was the day that Joe Cox was murdered. Just up the road on that same day. And then after that, obviously that was really awful, and we felt it so much more acutely here because of the local aspect. It was literally 3 miles up the road. And so we then all received information from the parliamentary authorities saying that we could have like CCTV and things at our offices, our homes.
Now, Sir David Amess was actually Paula's close friend. So, again, attacks on MPs is something that Paula has felt the effects of more than most, on top of the actual threats to herself. And as we heard earlier when she spoke to Ian last month, those threats continue. And with the death of Anne Widdecombe in July, Paula says the current systems in place to protect both current and former MPs is not working well enough.
So there is an element that the different authorities aren't perhaps working as well together as they should be. So you've got obviously the police, you've got the parliamentary authorities and the police, like within the parliamentary system. You know, you've got the local police forces, you've got the offices, but I don't know, there seems to be a massive inconsistency with the police forces as well. Some just seem to, honestly, they're just some do well. I'm aware of cases where people have had fantastic response from their local police force. So it isn't, don't get me wrong. I know there are some fantastic officers out there that are really concerned by this, but I genuinely don't think they take it seriously.
Now, the current system in place is called Operation Bridger. That's the main sort of police protection for MPs. That's said to have been strengthened following those murders of Joe Cox and Sir David Amess. MPs have a police contact. Intelligence is meant to be shared. But it's not like MPs have their own bodyguard or anything like that. And a lot of this, Paula says, was ramped up following, and we can probably all sort of point to it as well, Brexit and the language that was used by certain politicians following that. Paula said that language was often reflected word for word in her inbox. Now, she shared a 7-point plan with LBC that she feels needs to be implemented in order to improve the safety of MPs, and explain some of those ideas.
There has to be more education as well. And when I say education, do I mean in schools? Yeah, I do. But I also mean, I don't know, some sort of public awareness campaigns about how it is unacceptable to abuse your MP. And if you do it, and, perhaps make sentencing more severe.
Now, we have heard from the Home Office on this as well. They say alongside police, we work closely with the Parliamentary Security Department to provide support to MPs. The Home Secretary is also looking at what security guidance can be provided to MPs and has commissioned a review of the lessons from Sir David Amess's murder to identify improvements. Now, Anne Widdecombe was the third British politician to be killed in the last 10 years, and what Paula is calling for is action to prevent another similar tragedy.
Thank you very much, Alex. Much appreciated. Alex Taylor-Brown there, who, some of the details in that story and some of the abuse that Paula Sheriff was getting and is still receiving is clearly unacceptable. Alex Taylor-Brown there, LBC's Yorkshire correspondent, with the details on that. Sally says, during Blair, as in Tony's, education period, masses of funds went to getting all traveller children into school and supporting them and the schools. It was a tremendous success and had considerable value added interest, including community cohesion, teacher training about diversity and literacy, and of course, it worked, says Sally. Siobhan says, Henry, you're so gullible. Travellers love people like you. Thank you. And Dominic says, do they pay tax? Well, again, but it's interesting you say that, because clearly some don't. Yeah, fine. And they should. But Cliff Cadona was talking to me about that yesterday, who's from the association, who was saying we want to be in a situation where these people are living legally and paying tax legally. And you can only do that and achieve that if you let them into the system, bluntly. That's my view. What's yours? 0345 6060 973. Ernie is in Bexley. Hello, Ernie.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, sir. What did you want to say?
So, I come from the travelling community. I'm a Romany gypsy, yeah?
Yeah.
So my family's been here for over 500 years.
Yeah.
So, there's loads of problems there. So, do you pay tax? Like, does every white man, does every black man, does every Chinese man, does every whatever pay tax? Some of them don't. Mm-hmm. Some of them thieve. Some of them go to work. Do you get what I mean? Like, we're just,
that's fair point.
They're normal people, yeah? Fair point?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah? Like, my son is going through this problem right now.
How old is he?
So Ernie's 30.
Right.
So he buys a piece of land.
Ernie? Oh, is he Ernie as well?
Yeah.
Right.
So it goes back 5 generations, no, more longer, I think. So anyway, okay. Yeah, he's got a son, Ernie. So my dad was named Ernie. His dad was named Ernie.
I get it. Yeah. I'm on board.
Anyway, so he buys this piece of land, like miles out of the way from anyone. Yeah, so they try and find land like that, so they're not round anyone. Yeah, he took him about 2 years, 3 years to get it passed. He got it passed. He got it passed to live there in a chalet. There's someone at the front there that owns an house. At the side of him, there was an old lane. It was real rough, yeah, dirt road, say.
Sure.
My son's had that dragged off, all new curbstones, fence round. Yeah, try to make it look nice. This man is smashed every time my son goes out. He smashes every fence panel. He kicks every curbstone out. Yeah, he's got a forklift which he uses to dump rubbish and boulders in the lane, so my son can't even get in and out. So he's got little kids. He's got 3 little children.
And what Ernie
if
does.
anything happens to them,
yeah. And why do you think?
If anything happens to them kids, right? Yeah, you can't get a fire engine in there. You won't be able to get an ambulance in there. He can't get out. Yeah, this has been going on.
Because of what has been dumped there. Just to be clear, you can't physically get there.
Yeah, you can't get through. I drove down there the other day. Yeah, and there was boulders in the middle of it and everything. You couldn't move, right? Yeah. Now that's a danger, mate. Right? This man's come out, fired off a shotgun around his kids, poisoned his dog, the kid's dog.
Poisoned the dog.
Yeah, killed the dog. Yeah, poisoned the dog and killed it. Yeah, honestly, I'm not joking. Yeah, the man's on bail now.
Right. Well, let's not get into, because I don't want to get into the individual details.
I know
you're not. And I'm not silencing you. Yeah.
But I also tell you, in my family, yeah, I've got my daughter's a paramedic.
Yep.
I've got school teachers. Yeah, to go and teach the children, you know.
And can I ask you just a few questions then? So, your daughter, who's a paramedic, and the other members of your family who are teachers, would they feel?
I'm a professional athlete myself. Like I run an amateur boxing gym for the kids.
Oh, right.
Like I give 5 days a week to the kids for free of charge.
But just to check, so for instance, your daughter or the teachers, would they proudly say that they're a traveller, or would they?
They're frightened to say that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, only in certain places, and it's mad because. Like, even at the gym, I've got 3 travelling kids at the gym, but the rest of them are not travellers, right? Yeah. They come from like all different communities, Asian, black community, whatever. Yeah, Russians and Albanians and they're all different kids are treated all the same.
I got it. Yep.
But I still hear now and again in that gym some racism that I just turn my nose up to.
What, directly to you, or just?
Yeah, well, they go like, do as you likey, or pikey, or this, or that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, at the end of the day, I just put it down and like, listen, you've had a bit of a bad experience.
Yeah.
There's good and bad in everyone, my man. Yeah, you know, come on.
Yeah, and can I ask you just a question about the living arrangements then? I mean, I take it you, Ernie, understand why, if you do, and I'll use the example of Basildon because we've been talking about it earlier on. If you're living somewhere and then before you know it, the plot of land is tarmacked over illegally, and whether they own the site or they don't, the idea that it happens on a Friday, it happens on a Friday when the council have gone home, and then I mean that clearly annoys people.
Listen, I fully agree. That's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son took him nearly 3 years to get the planning for that.
Really? Right. Okay.
Yeah. You know, so he's still got no electric water on there or anything like that. Yeah, he's like living off grid. He's got his own solar panels. You know, he has to get his water elsewhere. You know what I mean? But, it's not easy living. Do you know what I mean? It's not, even though he's got that piece of land, it's still not easy living. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, there's no amenities on it, really.
Best wishes to Ernie, and Ernie as well. Cheers for that, Ernie, in Bexley in southwest London. More calls in a moment. It's 8:47.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The firms are pushing to be allowed to charge more for our water during droughts. There's not a water boss in the land who's making south of £1 million, and by the time you add his or her bonuses, they're pretty well north of £1 million. This as water quality continues to fall in most areas, and now they want to charge us more? Let's get those calls.
We're a school of 200 plus people, residential, got commercial kitchens, etc. We've had to get temporary toilets in because when we ran out of water.
These people, all they want to do is make more money for their stakeholders, shareholders, and rip the public off.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Switching to Vodafone full fibre broadband is now as easy as pie. Oh, freshly baked. It's a walk in the park. Hello, little fella. It's like taking candy from a baby. Come on, as if I'd do that. With One Touch Switch, it's easy. We sort everything out for you. We even contact your current provider. Plus, we'll help towards leaving fees. Switch today to full fibre broadband with Vodafone.
Up to £200 credit to cover leaving fees. More information and terms at vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
When it's your kids' favourite show,
when they'll learn something and have fun. When you just need a moment to yourself.
Right, while she's watching that, let's talk birthday party in the kitchen.
But I want to see who stole the fairy's magic hat too.
Nothing brings us together like great TV. And a TV licence covers you to watch all TV channels, so you can all enjoy the shows kids love to watch. Search TV licence together.
I heard you.
A red light becomes a moment to breathe. A coffee run, a kick of momentum. A wrong turn turns into an adventure, while a song becomes your soundtrack. From the driver's seat of an LBX, even the most ordinary of days can feel that little bit extra. The award-winning Lexus LBX self-charging hybrid. Find the extraordinary in the everyday.
Does your private medical insurance need a second opinion? At the Private Healthcare Company, we guarantee to save you money on your private medical insurance renewal, or we'll give you £100. We compare existing policies against major insurers, and if we can't find a policy for less, we'll give you £100. Guaranteed. Visit the-phc.com for full details. The Private Healthcare Company, your personal private healthcare broker.
This is LBC. Message Henry Riley on WhatsApp now. 0345 6060 973.
Bernie says, why don't government employ the travellers to build some social homes needed? That'll get them done in no time. See, they can build a housing site within the weekend. Yeah, but, OK, I see the point you're making, but ultimately, you've got to do it within the areas that have planning permission, haven't you? But nonetheless, I do sort of... I understand why you make that point. Elaine says, I live in the Republic of Ireland. Figures show 85% of travellers working age don't in fact work. I'll have to check that, but I'll take your word for it. So they have lots of children and claim many benefits and don't put too much back into the system by way of paying tax. Well, that's certainly a stereotype, but certainly in the case of Ernie, it would seem not to be the case if his daughter's a paramedic and if he's got members of his family who are teachers as well. I think ultimately there are clearly some travellers who are complete lowlifes, just as there's members of every community that are complete lowlifes. And I think the nature... My issue with it is, you know, ultimately travellers live here, right? Travellers are here to stay, and I'd much rather they integrate and are not seen as sort of this thing that we can't quite understand why they do what they do, and where they are tarmacking over land where ultimately in the first place either it's illegal, they don't own it, or in the second place they haven't got the planning permission to do it. I'd rather those things didn't happen, and the only way those things are not going to happen is you can't banish them. Clearly, you know, so it'd be a stupid suggestion. So you need to work with these communities, right? Rather than just, which I would suggest, if your government or council's putting your fingers in your ears and sort of pretending that they're not there, pretending that they don't need homes. By the way, just to clarify on something that was said with regards to working age, according to the ONS for 2021 in England and Wales, 37.4% of adults 16 or over identifying as white, gypsy or Irish traveller were in employment, which was the lowest employment rate across all recorded ethnic groups. So let's just make that point as well. And I think the figure for Ireland's roughly the same as well. So you're sort of not far wrong in what you were saying. There is clearly an unemployment problem. David's a first-time caller in Cambridge. Hi, David.
Hi.
Hello. What did you want to say, sir?
I think to use the word traveller is kind of too broad, because I would say I lived and worked in Cambridgeshire for 12 years, so I've met loads and loads of travellers, and in the environment I worked in, and I'd say there's basically three types. So you've got your Romany gypsy, who might have, you know, who can trace their roots back 500-600 years. They've been here, you know, a lot of them live in houses, some of them still live in caravans, but they're settled and they've got a long history. You've got your kind of more modern traveller who lives again on a settled site where they've got planning permission and sites provide whatever. And then you've got your kind of Irish traveller that roams around.
Right.
And they are, in my opinion, behave generally like bandits most of the time, from what I've seen and my experience. So my experience of where I worked was that my worst experience of working there was when we had an illegal site about 100 yards away from us for 3 months, and it was awful. It was absolutely horrendous.
And why? Just so I know.
just the antisocial behaviour, the way we were treated, the way the people around us were treated, and within the shopping precinct where I worked, it was horrible. When the shop got broken into next door, I heard the police saying, "Well, we know who's done it, don't we? Because we've just driven past them." And anyone who would say any differently would just be kind of pandering to to be PC. It's
interesting you say that.
No.
Well, hold on. It was a conversation, David. But what I'm saying is, ultimately, if you say sort of pandering to be PC, there is also clearly a lot of evidence in that this group is essentially the last group where it seems to be okay to be bluntly a bit racist towards them. I'm not saying you are.
Well, maybe, but also stereotypes exist for a reason.
Well,
when people talk about lived experience,
yes,
my lived experience, the coppers' lived experience, the community's lived experience says the same thing, because they move on, come back 3 months later, 6 months later, same thing again. You'll have a burglary straight away in one of the shops. So this is, so like I said, that type of traveller, basically, in my opinion, most of the time behaves.
But is the solution then not to basically have an us and them, which it is at the moment? I mean, ultimately,
they don't want that type of traveller does not want to integrate. If one of them marries outside of their group, which is highly unlikely,
right,
they are castigated. They're not allowed. They're stigmatised. They won't be part. I would say, though, my nicest customers that I got on really well with, and the only customers that ever gave me beer at Christmas, etc., were Romany Gypsy travellers. So that, again, the ones that I said, especially particularly a couple of guys, I'd have a good chat with them. We'd talk about the boxing, we'd talk about betting, we'd have a lot. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
I'll tell you another experience I had a couple of years ago. I took my wife on a boat trip, so we hired a canal boat, and we went in the Fens. We stopped off at a pub, which you could only really access from the river properly.
Sure.
And it was full of men, no women in the pub, all Romany Gypsy men that obviously lived in the area, were drinking in that pub. We were made to feel so welcome. We had a right laugh with them. You've got my Irish. So it's not a racism thing, but the type of traveller that travels around, I'd say the Irish traveller that breaks into sight, different sort of.
Okay. Well, look.
And last thing.
All right, go on then, quickly.
My neighbour, I live in a bungalow. My neighbour, she's a traveller, and her husband, and the only people that actually came out and checked my wife was okay when we had a small explosion in the house and they heard it. The only neighbours that come and checked on her, made sure she was all right, helped put out the little fire we had, was them.
Okay, well, good. Well, and that's good to hear as well. David, thanks for calling in and being a first-time caller. Always appreciate when people pick up the phone for the first time, so thanks for doing that. Aliv is in Islington. Hello, Aliv.
Hiya.
Hello.
A way back ago, I was working for London Authority.
London Authority, yeah.
As a welfare officer trying to get students into education. My biggest target was to actually help traveller families, traveller children. The biggest obstacle that I had in my career, I kid you not, was the head teachers of the schools. It was not the families or the children, because there was always this negative attitude around traveller families, traveller children. I remember one case very, very clearly, yeah. I had the head teacher saying to me, I want you to find this parent, I want you to take this parent to court, blah, 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 blah. I went to the site, even though everyone said to me, we have 15 people working in our office for a borough, for a council, yeah? They all said to me, oh, no, don't go to the site. They'll rob you, they'll do this, they'll do that. I went to that site, and I kid you not, by the time I finished in my first term, I had nearly 80% of those children in education. Oh. But the biggest challenges I had was one particular case that they wanted me to take the parents to court. One of the children had leukemia. The other one had severe profound autism.
Right.
And the school knew this, but they were not helping the family. So this is the problem that we have. Too many times, traveller communities are penalised before anybody even asks them, can I help you? Can I assist you?
And why is that not happening? How do we get to a point where that does happen, Aliv?
We need to change. We need to educate people. That's what we need to do. We need to make them understand that.
Well, I was saying earlier on, I don't know, maybe I've met one or a few, I don't know any travellers really, and that's also part of, well, maybe you actually wouldn't necessarily know, but I don't know many, and that's sort of part of the issue as well, isn't it?
Yes, and it's like another problem that travellers have where they can't actually integrate with us is that most of them can't read or write, unfortunately. And the government knows this, but then they will still send them out literature and expect to fill out forms and this and that. Well, how that you're automatically going to alienate that person from the community, aren't you?
Yeah, and people have had bad experiences. I mean, there's one here saying that there was a burger van that was set on fire when they refused to give out free burgers. And I didn't know the provenance of that case. I'm going to look into it, actually. But nevertheless, I mean, people have had really bad experiences all across the board. But again, I think part of that is this sort of us and them. Aliv, thanks so much for calling in. Much appreciated. We are going to move on. Thank you very much for all of your calls on that. Coming up...
Jewellery, diamonds, cash, all kinds of things was being stored there. Anyone who's interested in thieving, this is one obvious target.
A family-run jeweller in London's Hatton Garden faces being shut down so the shop can be turned into a bar themed around the famous heist that took place on that street 11 years ago. The family who face having their jewellery shop shut down, will speak to me in the next hour. Also...
It was a big change in our lives and a painful time. We didn't ever not see each other, but it was difficult for me and her.
That's the actor Ewan McGregor speaking about the relationship with his daughter, indeed the rift with her, following his divorce with his ex-wife. We'll be talking about in this hour, can you ever get over a family breakup properly?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and...
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, the government's insisted it was entirely appropriate to use the emergency alert system to broadcast Friday's warning against using disposable barbecues. It led to millions of mobile phones across England and Wales sounding a loud alarm. There's been criticism, including from domestic abuse charities, who say it could have put at risk victims with hidden second phones. Housing Secretary Angela Rayner's been to visit the burnt-out remains of homes in Stourbridge, destroyed by last week's wildfire.
The emergency services, the police, the fire, the ambulance service, the local authority, the local MP, Cat here, and the community have come together to really support each other. But it is devastating to see the level of damage and the emotional turmoil of losing everything. And that's what these families have gone through.
Number 10 says it won't comment on national security matters after it emerged Andy Burnham's exchanged communication with someone posing as Donald Trump's chief of staff. It's understood the Prime Minister became suspicious and quickly reported what had happened. Donald Trump's made an extraordinary threat to bomb a US ally in the Middle East. He says he'll attack Oman if it gets in the way of a peace deal with Iran. A 60-day deadline to negotiate an agreement with Tehran expired earlier today. A vigil has been held in central London to remember Professor Jason Arday. He was the University of Cambridge's youngest black professor before quitting amid allegations of plagiarism, which he denied. Other claims about his achievements outside academia were also questioned. Sir Patrick Vernon, who started a fundraising page for his family, was among the speakers to condemn the coverage of Professor Arday before he was found dead on Friday.
Where was the duty of care? Where was the compassion? Where were the safeguards? These questions were never asked.
Police in South Carolina say there are no signs of foul play relating to the death of actress Hayden Panettiere. The star of Heroes and Nashville was found dead at home yesterday, aged 36. In the city, the FTSE 100 index at the close was down 29 points at 10,720. The pound buys $1.35 and €1.16. LBC weather. Outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow, brighter and fresher weather following a high of 26 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Henry Riley.
And you're stuck with me for the next 2 weeks in for Ian Dale. Pleasure to have your company this evening. With you here till 10 o'clock. Ben Kentish with you here at 10. We're talking this hour not about Ewan McGregor. By the way, just as an aside, Ewan McGregor's a fantastic actor. Don't go and see the latest film, The End of Oak Street. It's terrible. I went to see it after my show yesterday, after I was presenting 3 till 6. Went to the cinema on my own, and it was dreadful. It was worth seeing, because I sort of like doing that. It helps me switch off. But before we get into this conversation, I'm not a film reviewer, but it's not worth seeing. Anyway, Ewan McGregor, I presume as part of that, not that he necessarily needs to plug things, because he's a fantastic actor, has been speaking about a whole host of other issues at the Edinburgh International Film Festival. And he was speaking about his divorce, or more specifically, the rift, as it's being described, with his daughter, that he says only healed once they'd worked together on a father-daughter film. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Ewan McGregor here, but just to say right at the start, I'm talking here from not much experience, right? I'm not married. I clearly have never had a divorce, and my parents also didn't get divorced either. So I've had no personal experience of this other than friends whose sort of houses I would go to play with after school and whatnot, whose parents were divorced. So are pretty limited in this respect. But I remember growing up, sort of having friends whose parents broke up, and this must have been my sort of stigma about it, but I was sort of always really hoping, really upset at the prospect that my parents would ever break up, they'd ever divorce. It was something that I would not constantly worry about, because I thought it was going to happen, but whenever I'd have friends who would report about their parents having an argument or eventually splitting up, I'd always think, God, I really don't want that to happen. I feel very lucky that isn't the case already. So that's sort of been my perspective on it. And I think, bluntly, I'd have found it very hard to get over and very hard to forgive either parent, or particularly the parent who has decided to call time on it. By the way, there's plenty of very good reasons to call a divorce, but I'd rather be brutally honest here than to sort of pretend otherwise. So there's that part of it as well. Clearly, you shouldn't be in a relationship if you don't feel happy, particularly if there's some relationships where people don't feel safe. So I'm not for one moment minimising that, but I'm just sort of making the point that the idea of a family rift, I was very fortunate in that it didn't happen to me, but it's something that I would have been, and I was, very acutely aware of because of it happening to friends, and it's something that I was sort of praying would never happen to me, and something that didn't happen to me. My parents are still very much together. But I could imagine feeling that resentment towards probably the partner of the newish partner for whoever my mum or dad would eventually meet and potentially go on to marry again, but also the just general not even irritation, in this case resentment, and the lack of being able to forgive as a result. And I'd really like you to call in this hour and to share your personal experiences. And we can change your name if you'd like us to, we can change your location, just really get into the crux of whether you can really get over a family breakup, and how did your family repair the rifts that can be caused by a breakup, whether it's acrimonious or actually amicable, whether that rift is ever able to be fully repaired, whether you're ever fully to go back to having the same relationship with mum or dad and dad or mum and mum or whatever after a breakup, after a divorce in particular. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Can you ever get over a family breakup, and how do you get over a family breakup? In a moment, I'm going to speak with Kate Daly, who is presenter of the Divorce Podcast. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Ewan McGregor. He has revealed that his post-divorce rift with his daughter was healed only when they worked together on a father-daughter film in which she furiously let him have it, his words. Now, of course, he is best known, if you're scratching your head, for playing Obi-Wan Kenobi, probably, in the Star Wars films. Haven't seen them. He has said his eldest daughter, Clara McGregor, who's now 30, had been very hurt and angry when he separated from his first wife, Eve, back in 2017. He said it was a very painful time with Clara, his daughter, who was one of his 4 daughters, actually, with his previous wife, who said that she was expressing her anger very well and admitted to being very scared about a film which was later released with his daughter, Clara, about weirdly, their relationship, or strangely or curiously about their relationship. Now, in 2024, Clara McGregor wrote, produced and co-starred in that film. It was called Bleeding Love, in which her on-screen dad was actually played by her dad, Ewan McGregor. And when the film was released in cinemas, the pair appeared together on Jimmy Kimmel's late-night TV show, and Ewan talked about the experiences of making that film.
It's born out of a difficult time for us, you know. It was a big change in our lives and a painful time. And then Clara came up to me, and we didn't ever not see each other, but we were. It was difficult for me and her because she was hurting a lot. And she said, "I'm writing a script about us," and I thought, "Oh, what's that gonna?" What's that going to be like, you know?
Probably fill in the blanks there as well. So that was Ewan McGregor speaking on Jimmy Kimmel. That's the prompt for our conversation. But again, if you work in this field, if you have been impacted personally in this field, whether you were one of the divorcing partners or whether you, or parties, I should say probably, or whether you were one of the children involved, and what impact that had, and whether you were ever properly able to get over it. 0345 6060 973. Kate Daly is co-founder of the online divorce and relationship service Amicable and is presenter of the Divorce Podcast and joins me now. Kate, firstly, interesting Ewan McGregor sort of being very open about this. How common is it to have such a rift with, in this case, his daughter as a result of a divorce, even when they're an adult?
Hi, Henry. Well, I think what's happened here is fairly typical. There are lots of people who face similar circumstances, and, you know, they go through phases where they might not speak to one parent or the other. And I think what's so lovely about this story is it shows that divorce didn't break a family, but it showed a family repairing themselves after a really tricky time. And that's what I think is so magical about this. And I'm really pleased that they've come out and spoken about it. I think, you know, children, we need to be realistic. Children don't need parents who never argue, who never get divorced, who it never breaks down. They need parents who, when things go wrong, role model and show them how to put things back together. So the fact that in this case, Ewan McGregor's daughter, I think Clara, was able to express how she felt, and her dad was there to hear it, to receive it, and they've been able to repair their relationship, I think is really quite heartwarming.
Is a divorce still taboo?
I think there are still elements of society that find it taboo and difficult to talk about, yes. I think that's changing. More people are more conscious of the fact that there have been so many surveys, so much research that comes out that says it's not divorce itself that harms kids, it's the conflict. And like I said before, even in intact families, if it's parents that are arguing, it's not arguing that upsets or hurts children, it's how it's dealt with. So if you can repair after something like an argument, or repair after a separation or divorce, that's what will become the protective factor. So I think as more of us understand the research, more of us understand how to be better at this if it happens to us, then I think we have a much better chance as a society of making this a much less taboo subject. And, you know, people like Ewan McGregor and Clara McGregor coming out and speaking about it, that certainly helps.
And what are some of the themes you explore from listeners of the Divorce Podcast?
Well, a whole range of things. I think what people really want to understand is what they're going through is normal. And, you know, there's no one size fits all with a divorce. There are some divorces that are really messy. I can think of my own, for example. And there are other people, and an increasing number of people, who manage to do things way more amicably. And I think what people want to know is that if there are difficult moments, if there are things that are said that feel like, you know, oh my gosh, we're never going to come back from that, that's not necessarily the case. And I know it's such a cliche, but time does heal. And I think ultimately, you know, when you're trying to move on, you're changing the shape of your family. No one's going to do it perfectly. You know, the ongoing conflict is what's really damaging. But if there is a way of navigating that conflict, of being patient, giving the other person some space to come to terms with what's happened, then you can have a really, good co-parenting relationship. You can get back on good terms. And I don't mean that means you're all happy clappy and it's sort of toxic positivity all over the place.
Yeah.
What I mean is that you have a workable relationship, and that's what your kids need. They need to know that you can still be their parents. Your relationship towards each other may have changed, but your love for them hasn't, and that you are able to rise above what's happened between you and still turn up as a parenting team, and that's what counts.
And clearly no divorce is going to be the same, obviously, and as you say, there are some that are amicable, some that are less amicable, acrimonious, perhaps even worse in some cases. But if you leave aside the children involved, if I focus on them and when they are under 18, if we leave that to one side and talk about when you get slightly older in your 20s and 30s, it's still something that really affects them, though, doesn't it, if their parents do get divorced? And is time a healer for them as well? Because I imagine there are some people who still never really quite get over it, even if, as you say, their parents are both very involved in their lives. I mean, does that still linger with some people?
I think we did a lovely film recently at Amicable with children of divorced parents, and they were children who were adult children. And listening to some of those messages, absolutely, as you say, it makes it really clear that they carry that. There's no question about it. And I think sometimes there's this idea that divorce only affects young children because it impacts their security of growing up with two parents. But as an older child or as an adult child, when your parents divorce, it can still have quite big impacts. So it can make you question your identity. It can make you question your childhood and whether, you were living a lie. And it has all sorts of implications for your own relationships as well. And one of the things that recently we've put together is a chatbot called Uni, that helps teens and young adults with a safe space to ask questions about how their parents' divorce may have impacted their relationship and their attitudes to relationships as well. So it means sometimes what's difficult is actually trying to have the conversation with your parents, because you don't want to offend the other parent. If you want to have a conversation with one parent, you don't want that to be something that gets in the way of your relationship with the other parent. So it's really hard to find the neutral ground as adult children. And I think a lot of adult children carry a sense of guilt for one parent or the other. Perhaps the parent who was left, they want to protect them. And I think you can take on some quite adult roles of wanting to protect a parent when you've got that kind of conflict in your background. So I think having that safe space, being able to use a safe space to be able to communicate how you feel. And if you think back to where we started with Ewan McGregor, that's exactly what Clara did. There were cameras rolling, there were a lot of people standing around, but she's used that space, that retelling of a story that's not her own but is a film. She's used that as a way of coming to terms with what's happened for her. And I think we don't all get the luxury, do we, of being on a film set.
No.
You can't just go and do that kind of thing. But that's kind of where something like therapy or speaking to a coach could come in. Effectively, they make this safe container for you to speak about what's gone on and to air those feelings, because holding on to them is really difficult. It sucks up a lot of energy. So how much nicer would it be if you could unburden yourself and be able to come to terms with whatever relationship you end up having with your parents, but not carrying that relationship as a burden?
Thanks very much, Kate. Really appreciate your time this evening. That's Kate Daly, who's co-founder of the online divorce and relationship service Amicable and is presenter of the Divorce podcast. I said right at the start of the hour, I'll say it again, very keen to have your stories on this. Talk to me about whether you were ever able to get over a family rift, a family breakup, how did you do it? Did you use, as our guest Kate was saying, through therapy, through seeing a coach? Does it actually, I mean, is time a healer? Talk to me through about your experiences. What were the specifics? As I say, we can change your name, change your location, anything like that you don't want necessarily read out on the air. How did your family repair the rifts that were caused by a breakup? 0345 60 60 973.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Reform vows to tear up the disability benefit system and stop foreigners claiming any at all. Is that what you want the government to do? Plus, talking of reform, even as homes are destroyed and crops fail, their deputy leader says today we need to enjoy the impact of climate change. And should sex offenders get the right to a new identity to obscure their criminal past?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Summer with my kids is paddling pools, barbecues, making those lifelong memories. But that's not every family's summer. We hear a lot about winter hardship, but for families facing poverty, summer can be one of the hardest times. Schools close, free lunches stop, the pressure builds. Bernardo's gets it. They're working alongside families with practical help to take some of that weight off. To find out more about their important work and how you can help, search Bernardo's.
LBC supports this message.
Get ready for late summer gatherings with the Oak Furniture Land Bank Holiday Sale and save on every range. Choose a stylish dining table and serve up delicious moments that'll bring everyone together for many summers to come. From dining to sofas and beds, now get 4 years interest-free credit from $499 with no deposit. Discover style that lasts a lifetime in the Oak Furniture Land Bank Holiday Sale, now on. Finance T's and C's apply. Oak Furniture Land FRN 928005 is a credit broker, not a lender. Ends 6th of September.
At Waitrose, you know you're a food lover when the standout summer party spread even outshines the unfortunate weather. Make it a summer to remember with our delicious #1 summer range, including fresh Italian burrata with a creamy centre on a bed of sweet and tangy aubergine caponata and succulent aromatic coronation spatchcock with crispy Bombay spiced onions. Oh, available now at Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Henry Riley on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
20 minutes after 9. Rob, in fact, let me go to another one here. Lucy says, wish I was brave enough to talk on the radio, but remember being 9 years old, begging my mum to leave my alcoholic dad. Thankfully, he wasn't violence, just a constant embarrassment. Well, that's the other thing as well. And by the way, I said that right at the top of the hour, that clearly there are situations where you need to leave the person. I'm not for a moment saying divorce is all terrible. I'm clearly not saying that at all, and our guest Katie made that point very clear. Let's go to Debbie, who's in Norwich. Hi, Debbie.
Hello, Henry. Good evening. Thanks very much for taking my call.
Pleasure.
So I am a family mediator, so I work with separated families every day. I'm also a child-inclusive mediator, which means that I speak to children usually over the age of 10 and under the age of 18, and I hear and respect their voice, and I carry their voice with their permission back to their parents.
Right.
They never come into the mediation setting, where in fact we sit and eat cake and talk about lots of lovely things aside from what's happening. But, you know, the voice of the child, as with the court process, should always be heard. And what I hear day in, day out from children, and your guest, you know, obviously was very clear about the position that what causes damage, of course, to children, and it's in every piece of research that I've ever read, is exactly the same thing. What causes damage to children is unresolved dispute between the parents and children experiencing that. So I will often be told by very young children, I invite the siblings in, usually just to have a cake and play or colour on the floor. And it's always the little ones that come up to me and say, you know, at handover, I get a pain in my nose or in my elbow. And what they're saying is, we don't like the conflict. We need that to stop. And so going back to your previous, your guest, parents can separate, and it's very raw for them and for what's going on. But of course, in the middle of all of this, there's a child or children who didn't ask for this to happen and who has to navigate their own way through their parents' separation. And what they need is consistency. And from all the children that I speak to, what children really need to know is that my mum and dad like each other. They don't say bad things about each other. They talk about me, and it's good.
And I said this to the previous guest as well. Do people ever... I know it depends on the divorce, but there are those people who carry it with them for the rest of their lives, even if... if it's their parents, for example.
Absolutely. And, there's been a lot of research into this, which is why, for those of us that speak children and have the absolute privilege, it's very humbling to speak to young children in their position. The research shows that children who were asked how it was for them and how they would like to make decisions or what input they would have, it is much more positive for their own outcomes. Because rather than something happening to them, and it's very frightening for children. If you think about just the simple things, the photo albums at home, two houses separate. Where do the pictures go? Where do the things go?
Yeah.
Where does everything go that was suddenly, part of their everyday life? And that has an impact on later life. And again, you mentioned it previously. It impacts and informs how people form their own adult relationships. And their own attachments and their fear, because there's, of course, a lot of fear for children when parents are separating.
And where does the imbalance come in being annoyed, for want of a better phrase, at the parents? Because, it always seems to me, and again, you'll know far more, with your work than I will, but people are always more annoyed at one parent than the other. Is that because that's where they perceive the blame, or because they happen to be closer to that parent and they're more sort of disappointed?
You mean from a child's
From a child's point of view, or even a young adult, by the way.
Yeah, it's also down to stages of development. So if you look at the teenage brain, for example, it's very common for a young teenager to align with one parent. Hugely painful. There'll be listeners, understanding exactly what that feels like. And in mediation, it's one of the hardest things when a child refuses to see another parent because they perhaps have aligned. And, anger can be very misplaced. It's about fear, isn't it? And again, it's about parents trying to work together. But of course, at the most raw time when their own relationships have broken down. Mediation is not a magic pill. It doesn't work for everybody. I don't see all children, because I certainly don't see children where there's such high conflict. We don't want children coming in and be fearful to say something. And I always say to children, it's still mum and dad who make the decisions, but they love you and respect you so much, and they want to hear what it is that you want. And, if a child walks in, Henry, and I can see that they're desperately trying to tell me something that perhaps has been, I'm not saying fed to them, but that they feel they should say.
Yeah.
I've already taken the parents' permission to be able to show them pictures of my Dachshund misbehaving, and we go completely off topic. And then I bring it back to what could mum and dad do to make things
And they then
better?
lose the
What is
pre-rehearsed
it?
scripts, do they? Or
Well, I think children need to come into this process. We're not therapists. Mediation is future focused, so we have to be very careful. But as I say, it's a great privilege to speak to children and to hold that space for them, but to enable them to say, I feel angry, I feel cross, or I feel fearful. And I think you had a message from someone called Lucy about when she was 9.
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of 9-year-olds who tell me things that they don't want me to tell their parents. And unless it's a safeguarding issue, I have to tread very carefully.
Well, of course.
Children experience so much, experience so much, and they need an out. And mediation can be a tiny part of that. And, I would encourage people listening, if they're thinking of mediation, it is something to explore, and also there is funding from the government which is non-means tested, which takes away a bit of the sting.
And that's why, clearly so important for people dealing with a different divorce in a completely different way. And as you say, for some people that suits, and that's great, and that works, but not for everyone. Debbie, good to hear from you in Norwich. Thank you. Let's go to Robin, who's in Dartford. Robin.
Hello.
Hello. What did you want to say?
My parents got divorced twice and married twice.
Oh, wow.
It didn't take a break.
Right.
But when I was 7, when it first happened...
Is that when they divorced for the first time?
Yeah, they divorced first time when I was about 7, so I was in year 2. It did affect me quite badly. Like, I would just start crying in the middle of class and I'd have to be sent home. But after a few years, I just got used to the fact that my dad wasn't at home, but he was at my nan and granddad's house, and I used to go there every weekend, so it wasn't like I wasn't seeing my dad.
Right.
I did have a lot of resentment because of the reason why they got divorced, because my dad was a semi-professional cyclist and lorry driver.
Oh, right.
So he'd be away all week in his lorry and then come home, be on his bike or watch telly, and wouldn't really spend much time with my mum or me.
Got it, right.
So they got married again.
Did that change for when they got married again, presumably?
It changed a little bit. Like,
Right.
he was a bit more like us-focused, but he went back to his old ways, just wanting to watch telly, and there was other things, of course, that I don't know about and still don't know about in my 30s.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Still.
And then how old were you when they got married again then? So you were year 2 when they first got divorced?
Yeah, I was at scout camp when I was in year 7 or year 8. So
It's only a few years later. Right, okay.
Yeah, only a few years later. But then they divorced again when I was about 19 or 20.
Right, and was that, obviously that was easier presumably, was it, or was it not, to get over?
It was easier for me because I'm an adult at that time.
Yeah.
And I can see the different points of view. But it wasn't until I was about 28 when me and my dad had a bit of a Barney, and I got out everything that 7-year-old me, like 7 to 10-year-old me, wanted to say, to be like, why did you leave? Why did you choose your bike over me and mum? Like, it's a bit of metal and rubber that you do races on. Like, we're more important than that.
And do you, have you found that you've ever got over that? Because clearly there's that...
I have got over it. Me and my dad play pool together. We do things together. So I used to cycle with him.
Yeah. Well, I don't
as a
fancy
way of,
that
like-
against a semi-professional cyclist, but anyway.
Well, yeah. But
He must be quick.
I held my own. Like,
Okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, much better than me, I imagine. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, but it was just something that I was trying to do to, like, still have a relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
And now that I'm a proper adult, as some people would think in my 30s, we do have a much better relationship now that I am an adult.
Good.
So like, we can joke about in, like, not very PC ways, because I've gone to work with him since I was 7 as well, so I've been in that environment. But it's something that we do together, Paul. My mum moved to Ireland with my stepdad, who's amazing. My dad is still single.
Got it. Okay, well, and it's good that you can laugh about that and have that almost dark humour as well, Robin. Thanks so much for calling in, Robin there in Dartford. More calls in a moment, 0345 6060 973. I know it's not the easiest thing to talk about, but I'd like to know, we're talking about Ewan McGregor, who's revealed the conflict with his eldest daughter after his divorce, the fact that Clara, by the way, his daughter, had a lot of resentment. She felt very hurt and angry after he separated from his wife, her mother, and about whether you ever really get over that. How did your family repair the rifts caused by a breakup, by a divorce, and do you ever really get over it? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Still to come.
A lot of it was rubbish, old stuff that very hard to sell. At the time, they said it was all SAS soldiers. In the end, they said it was Dad's army.
That's one of the men involved in the 2015 Hatton Garden jewellery robbery. Now a property developer wants to open a brand new bar in Hatton Garden themed around the heist. We'll speak with the family who run the jewellery shop where the developer wants to put the bar next. 9:31 the time. The news is with Daisy Steele.
Downing Street insists Friday's warning, broadcast to millions of mobile phones advising against using disposable barbecues, was an entirely appropriate use of the emergency alert system. The government says it was issued at the request of fire services as they continue to tackle wildfires. A decision on new oil and gas extraction in the North Sea could be made in the next few weeks, and it has the backing of President Trump. Consultations on the Rosebank platform west of Shetland and Jackdaw off the coast of Aberdeen have now closed. A senior executive at FIFA has been sacked after criticising Gianni Infantino's failed plan to sell off the World Cup to private investors. Chief Operating Officer Kevin Lamore said staff had been deceived by the president's plans. LBC weather: outbreaks of rain for the north of the UK will spread into northern England and North Wales overnight. Rain will carry on moving south tomorrow. Brighter and fresher weather following, a high of 26 degrees.
LBC.
A message from TfL for drivers, motorcyclists and cyclists.
Before you turn, look around. Is there someone crossing or waiting to cross at the junction? You now need to always let them cross before you turn. Follow the highway code to keep everyone safe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Disco fever has taken dance floors by storm.
Girl power is taking over the charts.
Will the smartphone revolutionize the world?
A lot has changed over the past 5 decades, but one thing that hasn't changed is what makes a great casino. And being backed by over 50 years of Las Vegas heritage, we should know. BetMGM Casino, the real deal. 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.
You want to sit down?
Yeah.
I can confirm that you have won £1 million indeed.
Who wouldn't want to feel that feeling?
Thank you so much.
New Lotto is now making more millionaires than ever before.
Oh my God.
And this week, it could be you.
Congratulations.
Lotto from the National Lottery. It could be you. Rules apply. 18 plus.
Who could you be with Pension B? I can add to my pension whenever I want. Regular contributions help to build my future. Download the app today.
This is LBC with Henry Riley.
And a very good evening to you, Henry Riley, in for Ian Dale tonight and for the next 2 weeks here on LBC. We're talking about family rifts. Ewan McGregor, the actor, has revealed a conflict with his eldest daughter after a divorce. Clara, his daughter, who's now 30, was particularly annoyed, to put it mildly, very hurt and angry when he separated from his first wife, her mother, Eve. And I'm asking whether you have ever had to repair a family rift, in particular caused by a breakup. How have you gone about doing that? Do you ever really get over something like a divorce, like splitting up? 0345 6060 973. And not just divorce, by the way, sort of general family arguments. I remember a sort of family friend of mine, it was a bizarre situation. Sadly, he's no longer with us. Lovely man. And his sons, of which he had quite a few, I remember going to a party once and they'd be in their 40s, maybe 50s, and the sons wouldn't talk to each other. And there was one instance where they hadn't spoken to each other for 20 years and they were at the same party and they just didn't get on at all and they all hated each other and it all turned into massive drama. As a result. And so we're talking about whether you can really heal those family rifts and how you go about doing it. In particular, by the way, if it's caused by a breakup or divorce. 0345 6060 973. And 42% of marriages end in divorce. Is it still as taboo in your view as it once was? How did your son or daughter react when you told them you were getting divorced? And if you were the son or daughter, who is a bit older now, how did you respond? Have you really properly forgiven either party when it comes to your parents? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. There are other stories, though, and as I mentioned, a story that was covered a couple of days ago in the Express, extraordinary story that a historic Hatton Garden jewellers is threatened with demolition so developers can open a heist-themed bar. You did hear that correctly, a heist-themed bar in the basement. Family firm Katz & Co Limited stands on the same block where the ageing gang stole £14 million estimated from safety deposit boxes back in 2015. Well, I'm delighted to say we have two gentlemen on the line with me now. Firstly, George Katz is director of Katz & Co, the oldest established retail jewellery shop in Hatton Gardens. And likewise, Robert Willis is director of Katz & Co. As I say, just to remind you, the oldest established retail jewellery shop in Hatton Garden. And Robert is George's son-in-law, just so you understand the dynamics of this as well. Can I start off with you, Mr. Katz, Director Mr. Katz?
Yes.
What was your reaction? When did you first hear about this?
Well, we just had a letter from their solicitors telling us that the lease is not going to be renewed. This is after 70 years of leases being renewed without any problem at all, and it was just out of the blue completely.
And talk to me about Emil Katz, who founded this, your father.
Yes, he was a refugee who came to England in 1939. He had a few diamonds sewn into his coat, and the natural place to come would be to Hatton Garden to sell them to establish a living. He did this and became involved in the trade and developed a business. He had an office, and later on we had the shop, which originally was just an office. And when my mother took over when he died, we turned it into a retail shop, and it's been there ever since, yes.
Yeah, I read 1946, as you say, 7 years after he'd have fled Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia, again, as you say. I mean, clearly this is so personal to you, not least for your father, but the amount of time you've worked in it. Is it tasteless, staying with you, Mr. Katz, to open a bar about something where I would imagine a lot of people you know in the area never saw that money ever again?
You're quite right. I mean, it's ghoulish. I mean, it's like somebody going into Jack the Ripper's house and just toddling around where lots of crimes took place.
Robert Willis, can I bring you into the conversation, again, to give you the family dynamics? George's son-in-law, Mr. Katz's son-in-law, who's a director of E-Cats & Co. So he's on his best behaviour. Robert, sort of picking up on that last point, your father-in-law described it as ghoulish, and I think that's a pretty apt way of talking about it. There's this strange obsession now with true crime. I understand why, because it's really interesting, and by all means be interested in it. But to do it sort of at this time when it was only, 10, 11 years ago, and when, as I say, the people you know will have been impacted, again, how do you respond to that?
Well, sorry. First of all, good evening, Henry.
Evening.
Thank you for having us on and giving us some airtime. Well, absolutely. I mean, it is ghoulish. Hatton Garden is, as everyone knows, is a high value jewellery retail area, and as a result of that, crime is an ongoing concern for us. It's not rife in Hatton Garden. It's very well controlled, but it's not something to make fun about. So for us, it seems. I've said before, it would almost be funny if it wasn't for the fact it was an existential threat for us in terms of 80 years of business. It would almost seem like it was some sort of funny joke, but it's absolutely not a funny joke. It's deadly serious, and they are planning on doing it if they get planning approval. And
I don't want to get too into the weeds of it, but why would it require your retail jewellery shop to go to accommodate this bar, regardless of whether we agree with the bar or not?
They want to use our shop to have a dedicated entrance. So the bar's going to be in the basement where the safe deposit box is, and they want to use our shop as a dedicated entrance to have a lift and a staircase there. So they are literally talking about ruining 80 years of trade and craft for a staircase and a lift to a bar.
That's extraordinary. Mr. Katz, can I bring you back into the conversation? Sort of take me back to that time of the Hatton Garden heist and your memories of it as someone who was obviously directing a very successful shop in the area.
Okay, it was over a bank holiday, and on the previous Saturday we were open as usual, and I must say there was no untoward evidence of a crime taking place. It was completely normal, no heavy lorries or men in jackets wandering around doing stuff, completely normal. We obviously didn't know about it, and then the following Tuesday, when the news broke that the safe deposit had been burgled, hundreds of people came swarming around, forming a queue outside the shop, and coming into the shop asking how they get downstairs into their safe deposit to see if their items had been stolen or whatever. And there was some quite tearful scenes. People were panic-stricken. It was important for a lot of people, and lots of people were ruined, traders, because they never thought to insure something where the items were supposed to be in a rock-solid place. And they lost a lot of money, and 2 or 3 people were completely ruined, lost everything.
And Robert, again, sort of staying with that theme and asking you about it, was your business not personally impacted, but clearly the local area was it? Or could you just tell us more details?
I mean, I've been at the business now for 10 years. So as you rightly said, it was in 2015 that the heist occurred. Right. So it was just before my time. So yeah, of course, it had a big effect on the streets. It brings unnecessary, unwanted attention to the street because people think it's heightens its risk of being a crime area. And there's lots of media attention, and there still is now. I mean, people are still obviously do come and have interest in it. But as I said before, Hatton Garden needs to be seen as a safe, welcoming environment for people, not somewhere to have fun around. Let's all fun and get intoxicated, essentially, joking about such a serious crime, which is still within living memory of a lot of people.
Well, quite. And I see Ben Massey from the National Association of Jewellers is strongly objecting to this as well. For people who equally are, and they may not even have ever been to Hatton Garden, but they feel that this is something they're very angry about. I mean, what would you urge them to do? Is there a petition, or what can people do?
Absolutely. Well, the planning application is live.
Right.
They are accepting comments to the planning application until the 30th of this month. So there's still a good 10 days or so to go. If people want to object and can object, that would be absolutely fantastic. You can go onto Camden's website, go onto the planning portal and simply search for the application number. It is 2026/3010/P. If you put that in, so that's 2026/3010/P, and the application will come up.
Thank you very much, Robert. That's Robert Willis, director of eCats & Co., as I say, the oldest established retail jewellery shop in Hatton Garden. Mr. Katz, lastly, while I've got you, how has it changed running a jeweller's in, well, I was going to say in London, but just generally? Have you found in all of the years that you've done it that it's changed?
Hatton Garden has got much more retail orientated, which is nice. People come from far and wide, from Scotland, Ireland and abroad just to see Hatton Garden. It is a central place for jewellery in the UK, and it should be kept as such and not diluted by, quite frankly, things that are nothing to do really with jewellery. And it shouldn't be an entertainment centre, it should be a jewellery centre.
Well, quite. Mr. Katz, thank you. George Katz, director of eCats & Co. Do keep us updated with that, by the way. Keep my colleagues updated, and we will definitely return to that another time. Be interested to know what happens there. You're listening to Henry Riley here on LBC. We are talking about your particular family instance where there may have been a rift. What caused it, in particular if it's the case of a divorce like in Ewan McGregor's case, and whether you really get over something like that. 0345 6060 973. It's 9:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Reform vows to cut the welfare bill by 50 billion and scrap the current disability benefit system entirely. Your calls on that, plus why Donald Trump is threatening to bomb a US ally.
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Switching to Vodafone full fibre broadband is now as easy as pie. Ooh, freshly baked. It's a walk in the park. Hello, little fella. It's like taking candy from a baby. Come on, as if I'd do that. With One Touch Switch, it's easy. We sort everything out for you. We even contact your current provider. Plus, we'll help towards leaving fees. Switch today to full fibre broadband with Vodafone.
Up to £200 credit to cover leaving fees. More information and terms at vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
Crocs Clips just dropped in Happy Meal. Express yourself however you feel. Sports mode, stylish or superstar too. Whatever your vibe, we've got the mode for you. Some fun, some food. It's all inside this Happy Meal.
Until the 21st of September from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy. Crocs range comprises toys only while stocks last. Fair ordering policy applies.
Get ready for late summer gatherings with the Oak Furnitureland Bank Holiday Sale and save on every range. Choose a stylish dining table and serve up delicious moments that'll bring everyone together for many summers to come. From dining to sofas and beds, now get 4 years interest-free credit from $499 with no deposit. Discover style that lasts a lifetime in the Oak Furnitureland Bank Holiday Sale, now on. Finance T's and C's apply. Oak Furnitureland FRN 928005 is a credit broker, not a lender. Ends 6th of September.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. So who's ready for the best summer yet? Unwind in your choice of 4- and 5-star hotels in over 75 destinations like Kos, Lake Garda and Gran Canaria. Book now and get 22 kilograms of baggage included. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. After Natural Protected. Subject to availability and conditions.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group Clinics. With over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
Henry Riley on LBC. Text 84850.
How did your family repair the rifts caused by a breakup? 0345 6060 973. This from Oliver says, this is my experience of how broken relationships don't work. My mum and dad split up when I was 20, and honestly, it was incredibly difficult. Around the same time, I came out as gay, and my dad announced he'd been having an affair with my mum. After that, I didn't speak to my dad for 10 years. During those years, I became closer to my mum than ever, and she was there for me through everything. My dad did try to reach out, but I couldn't bring myself to rebuild the relationship that we once had. After 11 years of not speaking, we finally met again, but things have never really been the same. We don't have much in common, and sometimes I struggle to know what to talk about with him. So much of what I want to talk about comes from my childhood, the things my sister and I did when mum and dad were together, the memories we shared as a family. But bringing those memories up now doesn't feel natural because so much has changed since then. I suppose the hardest part is knowing that there was once a time when having a relationship with my dad felt totally or completely normal. And now I'm trying to build something with someone who, despite being my dad, feels like a stranger in some ways. I don't hate him. I don't necessarily want to live in the past. I just wish things could have been different. And I wish rebuilding that relationship was easier than it is. Thank you, Oliver, for that. Let's go to Kooky, who's in Islington. Hello, Kooky.
Hi, good evening.
Evening. What did you want to tell me?
Thank you for taking my call, first of all, and excuse me because I'm very, very nervous at the moment.
Oh, don't be nervous.
Thank you. The subject is not the easiest of all subjects to discuss. So my experience after 19 years of domestic violence, I've decided enough was enough. I had 3 boys at the time, and I had all sorts of DV against me, like whatever you think of, I've suffered through it. And unfortunately, through that process, I've lost a child who was 17 years old. Oh. When I say lost him, it is very painful. So there was a lot of accusations and a lot of stuff, like, because I stepped out, my ex-husband did not take it. Like, we're breaking up, so he's got to put me through something that I'm going to lose all the kids and so on. So
just to be clear, with your eldest child, what did you say had happened?
So he's refused any knowledge.
So you've lost contact.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just quite a very messy divorce, and he just refused to have any connection with me and his siblings.
Ah, right.
And that was 10 years, just actually coming up to 11 years this October this year. And I've tried everything. The first 2.5 years, I think, were the hardest, most difficult ones, because I just could not comprehend a child who put himself voluntarily in care when dad wasn't even in the country and just not coming home. And I've tried everything. Basically, I've tried mediation, I've tried social services, I've tried every association that could help, with no luck. It's just like I'm knocking on doors that will not open.
Yeah. And has there been any progress made at all? No, none whatsoever, even through those various outlets that you tried?
No, but I took it on my hands at the end. I've seen him in the street when I'm on the bus. I just jump off the bus and say hello. Well, he could be very, very nice and friendly. He's a very good boy, I must say. And when I say boy, sorry, he's a young man now. And I invited him around. I reassured him that I'm still your mother. Yes, we are divorced, but he's still your dad. I'm still your mother. So my door's always open. Your siblings need you. He came once, had dinner with us, and that was 5 years ago. After 2 weeks, he came again, and you can see him. He's getting these text messages. His phone is going wild, like with deep messages, and all of a sudden he's just corrupted. He was bringing everything. You did this to dad, and you did that, and you divorced him. Everything to do with the divorce. And I'm like, who's texting you all of this? Because you were just fine.
Without trying to get you to relive any trauma at all, but what does he say when you tell him about some of the things that you experienced through, I think you said 19 years of that domestic violence?
The funny bit that I can't comprehend myself is this young man, 17 years old, he actually pulled his dad off me with a knife in his hand, pushing him away from me. Oof. So he saw it firsthand. His brothers didn't. He saw it. Most things he didn't know, he didn't see. But he just I don't know if it's denial or manipulated or I don't know. I really don't know. But like it came to a point for me to survive. I tell my, like, if anybody doesn't know my past, I just say I've got 2 boys, which are the ones that are with me, because that's my way of coping.
And do they, again, without trying to pry at all, but do they sort of try and talk to him?
Yeah, no luck whatsoever. So bless them, they're just giving up. I mean, one, I was talking to Sheila last time, one just left the country to live abroad, but the other one, the youngest one, is 18, and you can see the damage, you can see the innocence in him, you can see there's, it's honestly, it's like, it's going to sound really difficult to understand, but it's like losing a child every minute of the day. That's what I'm living at the moment. Like that rift never been repaired. Family members tried. I've tried basically everything and everyone, and all I'm getting is a blank door.
Yeah.
That will not open.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that, Kuki. I pray for you. I hope for you that you're able to have that meaningful... I know you said you have contacts, but you're able to have that meaningful contact one more day. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing more I can say in the sense that I've never been in that situation. Obviously, I can't imagine how difficult it is. You really illustrated it there, where you were saying it's like losing a child every day. And I hope, you know, that you do make meaningful contact and that you're able to have a relationship with them. Thank you so much for calling in, Kuki, there in Islington. And of course, themes of domestic abuse mentioned there. So if you, the number for Refuge, and this is something that you may have been experiencing in the past, you may be experiencing now, the 24-hour National Domestic Abuse helpline from Refuge is 0808 2000 247. That's 0808 2000 247. Your calls on this on 0345 606.
But it took away those formative years with my grandchild, who was very young at the time, because he just didn't want anything to do with the family.
And did you ever address it before, obviously, you're talking about the illness that your mum has?
She just wouldn't hear of it. She would only hear his side of things and think that I'm making a big issue about about it. So it just became, I think her focus was very much on him.